Good morning. I'm calling to order the December board meeting of the MTA. I want to start out by apologizing to the folks, members of the public who were lined up trying to get into the building. Some kind of foul up with the presence of the folks who had to operate the magnetometer, but we don't like to keep our folks waiting, especially the loyal folks who appear to speak at this meeting regularly. So we're going to try to make sure that that doesn't happen again, and I apologize for the inconvenience. Let's hear from the safety. Let's hear the safety announcement, and then from the patient public speakers.
Your safety is of the foremost importance to the MTA. Therefore, we ask that you listen and adhere to the following instructions. If you witness an emergency, notify emergency personnel in the room and call 911 immediately. Please follow any audible instructions provided through the public address system or visually on screens in the event of an emergency. If an alarm sounds, wait for a public address announcement and follow instructions. If told to go to another floor or to evacuate the building, leave all unessential items behind and use stairwell A just across the main hallway or stairwell B down the hallway past the elevators. If you have a mobility disability or cannot self-evacuate, please proceed to stairwell D or E for assistance by MTA staff or emergency personnel. An automated external defibrillator, AED, for use by trained personnel is in the main hallway just past the elevators. If you need assistance during an evacuation, please tell an MTA staff member or emergency personnel. Thank you and have a safe day.
Danny, folks ready to speak?
Yes. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, and welcome to the MTA Board Meetings public comment session. Today we will hear from public speakers both remotely and in person. We have 19 members of the public registered to speak today. As a reminder, we ask that all public speakers adhere to the MTA's rules of conduct and decorum. I would also like to remind our public speakers that in the interest of time and fairness to all speakers, we will limit everyone to 2 minutes. Please be aware that there will be a warning beep to remind you that you have 30 seconds to conclude your remarks. Our first speaker is John Padula, followed by Cameron Best.
Gotcha. Sorry, just give me 1 second. I wasn't ready, not good. Okay, good morning, folks. My name is John Padula. I'm a supervisor with Educational Vision Services from New York City Public Schools. I'm also a member of the Advisory Committee for Transit Accessibility. Once again, on Monday, we were regaled with tired platitudes of how accessibility goes beyond escalators and elevators and ramps, and I would agree, it should. And for blind folks, we need audible, meaningful announcements on buses and subways. That's the only way I can safely and purposefully travel, is if I have non-visual access to my environment. I need to know where I am, and I need to know if a subway changes from the N line to the D line, like happened to me 3 weeks ago, going into Manhattan. There's a lot of smart folks in this room. There's a lot of things that need to improve in 2024, and I hope we can all reason together to get that done. But I asked the smart ladies and gentlemen at that table, leadership, board members, where is the fairness in this? What are my choices? Get on a subway or a bus, 50-50 shot of having meaningful access to my environment, traditional accessoride, a limited on-demand program that only gives me access to one borough. Phase 3 needs to be meaningful. Why am I paying for your tolls in on-demand, by the way? That's abusive. But anyway, I'm here in the spirit of just reasoning together and hoping to work together in 2024. I wish you guys all a happy holiday. Bought presents. Who moved my cheese? One for Rich, one for Jano, one for the board. Pass them around. We need some new cheese. We need improvement in 2024. I wish you guys a happy and healthy holiday season. Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, whatever you celebrate. My name is John Padula. Thank you. Danny, can you grab these?
Thanks, John. Someone's going to grab them right now. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And happy holidays. Our next speaker is Cameron Best, followed by Charlton D'Souza over Zoom.
Hello. I've been watching these MTA board meeting live streams for about a year now. This is my first time in person. This past Monday, I noticed the committee meetings were pretty sparsely attended. Now, why would this be? I know you all care deeply about the MTA, but I don't think it's that. If the board and committee meetings just highlight some of the really good things that the MTA has done in the past month or year, followed by some approvals, there isn't as much of a reason for people to be there. On my wish list for the MTA next year is more debate and criticism at these board meetings. In addition to highlighting what they do well each month, I think the MTA should also highlight some of the things they didn't do well. Talk about what happened, why it happened, and what they're going to do to improve it. Feedback is important for any smoothly running system, and you need to make sure that you have that feedback there to improve it. Sometimes when watching these board meetings, it's felt like there's two separate worlds. The idealized one presented at these meetings and the harsh one in the press. The reality, at least that I've seen, is somewhere in between, but I think we need to close that gap. Thank you.
Thank you for your remarks. Our next speaker will be Charlton D'Souza, followed by Jesse Figueroa.
Good morning, everyone. Charlton D'Souza, President of Passengers United. So we have a Queens bus redesign that was just announced last week. So what we need for the Queens bus redesign, we need a route that goes from Long Island Jewish Hospital all the way to Far Rockaway for equity. And what we also need is a third transfer for people who live in Queens. We need more express buses, not less, because when congestion pricing is, put into effect, what's going to happen to all these people who don't want to get on the subway or bus? The local bus, they're going to want express buses. So we need to think about equity, but we also need to think about safety in our subways. We need police officers in the subway system at every station on a 24-hour basis. We need safety because right now it's not safe. I was on a 6 train Friday night where that stabbing happened, where that 17 or 18-year-old kid was stabbed. And that was horrific. The cops were trying to break open the door, trying to go through the station. So maybe the police need keys to the side doors as well, so they can exit through the side doors in an emergency. But overall, this year has been a lot of struggles. A lot of things have happened this year. Unfortunately, this year we lost the Atlantic Ticket Weekly. I'm hoping that the City Ticket Weekly is going to be reinstated for Southeast Queens, but not only for Southeast Queens, for the Bronx, for Metro North Territory and Long Island Railroad Territory. We need a weekly city ticket. And I'm looking to you, Mr. Chairman, and this board to make that happen. We also need a 375 overnight ticket for the railroads. We can do it. Let's get it done, guys. I want to wish all of you a very happy new year and a joyous holiday season. Thank you.
Thank you for your remarks. Our next speaker will be Jesse Figueroa, followed by Jack Nierenberg.
Good morning, everybody. How you guys doing? The reason why I'm come to you today is because I witnessed a 3-year-old boy nearly dragged to death on the subway at the 86th Street, 4th Avenue station in Brooklyn. And what happened was that this child ran away from his parents, hit the pillar of car number 9836. And his shoulder and head hit the bottom part of the train as it was moving, and he could have been dragged to death between the cars. So I rushed over and threw myself down to the platform edge and pulled the toddler by his legs. So he sustained minor injuries, but the family refused medical attention at the station. Maybe they did after they left, but I refused medical attention. So 5 days later, I re-aggravated both my upper legs and I had to go to the VA hospital in Bay Ridge. So it was a very frightening experience at the moment. So other than that, and I want to wish you all a happy and safe holiday season. God bless. Thank you.
Thank you for your remarks. Our next speaker will be Jack Nierenberg, followed by Mr. X.
Good morning, everyone. In case you're wondering, you may or may not have been wondering over the last 5 months, what happened to Jack Nierenberg? Well, here I am. I'm still the Vice President of Passengers United, and we've been doing a lot of work to really make sure that, especially lately with the Queens Bus Network redesign plan that has just been released a few weeks ago, that no one is going to be disadvantaged from the plan. No disadvantaged community will be benefiting at the expense of another disadvantaged community. And also people in vulnerable situations like seniors, people with disabilities, are also not going to be adversely affected. And I do want to note some improvements. I have seen some, such as the reinstatement of the Q41 route, the Q17, a lot of those lifelines for many of these transit deserts. But at the same time, I think there's still a lot more work to be done, and this plan cannot be implemented as it is right now. There's still a lot more work to be done, especially when it comes to the spacing of bus stops. Many of them are still 7 blocks apart on a local section. That is not okay for people who can't walk to it. And we're actually hosting a virtual town hall tonight at 7:30, and we're trying to do our part to make sure that all of these voices in these communities that are going to be affected are elevated and heard. And that's what I want to see more of from the MTA. I want to see more transparency about methodology. And also, in the press statement that was released, it claimed that 83% of Queens riders will still have their bus stops. Well, if we assume that everyone in Queens uses the buses, that amounts to 386,000 people who are going to be affected by the removal of their bus stops. So that's a lot of people. So I really want to see more public engagement, more proper public engagement, and a greater commitment to equity. And that's what I want to see from you in 2024. Thank you so much. Happy holidays.
Thank you for your remarks. Our next speaker will be Mr. X, followed by Maddie Bouchais Highland.
Jan, regarding what happened here earlier today, I'll speak to you about that issue at a later time. If congestion pricing comes to fruition, I'd like you to connect 204th Street at Webster Avenue to White Plains Road at or near Bronxdale Avenue, because Gun Hill and Fordham roads are heavily congested. In order to ease the congestion, you need to connect 204th Street at Webster Avenue to White Plains Road at or near Bronxdale Avenue. Two-way traffic should apply. You can do it. I checked the map. Additionally, you need to connect Soundview Avenue at Classens Point Park to Lewis Boulevard. You may have to connect it to the Cross Island Parkway, CIP first, and Lewis Boulevard second, but that would be nice because then I could travel between my borough and Queens without entering Manhattan. You understand what I'm saying? Also, regarding the Metro Railroad New Haven line, you need to extend it to all the New England points and dismiss Scamtrack once and for all, because as you know, Scamtrack is too expensive. You've heard Jimmy Morgan say the rent is too damn high. Scamtrack is too damn high. You understand what I'm saying? If I'm traveling to New Haven, it's better if I take the Metro Railroad, not Scamtrack, because I can afford it. I've been to New Haven many times. I've been to the New Haven Coliseum, the former New Haven Coliseum, many times for the obvious reason. You need to do it, okay? Bring Metro Railroad Hudson Line to Penn Station, thus eliminating Scamtrack once and for all. You understand what I'm saying?
Thank you for your remarks. Our next speaker will be Maddie Bucky's Highland over Zoom, followed by Jason Anthony.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. I'm Matty W. Bucky's Highland. I want to speak today about the expansion to Staten Island Railway. Last month, I spoke at the Transit Committee meeting and the Construction Developmental Committee of a possible expanding the Staten Island Railway from Tottenville, New York to Perth Amboy, New Jersey, as a way to connect people. For if someone lives in Staten Island in the Southwest, they either have to take the train to Whitehall and then the Staten Island Ferry, or take New Jersey Transit from New York Penn Station to Perth Amboy and then take an Uber or a taxi there. With that expansion, people would only pay $2.90 rather than paying $17 at the Outer Bridge crossing. And second of all, I want to wish a very happy holidays to Chairman Jano Lieber and to Commissioners Albert, Barbas, Brigham, Brown, Chu, Fleischer, Glucksman, Jones, Lopez, Mack, Maholsis, Miranda, Rizzo, Samuelson, Soren, Tessitore, Valdivia, and Zuckerman. May each and every one of you have a very happy holidays. Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Kwanzaa, and Happy New Year. May God bless each and every one of you. I'll see you in 2024. Danny, Randall, over to you.
Thank you, Maddie. Our next speaker will be Jason Anthony, followed by Miriam Fisher.
Hey everyone, happy Wednesday. Jason Anthony here. Last night when I was going home, I was on a packed 3 train from Times Square to Nevin Street. We should use what DC Metro reminds everybody while boarding the train. Move to the center of the car while boarding. Because I have seen a lot of people blocking the doors, holding the doors. What if we have an emergency? How everybody is going to evacuate from the trains? Second, we should remind everybody to use the Courtesy Counts campaign, because we should not only see it on screens, we should be reminded about it. Third, we should apply something that DC Metro has, that along the platform edge, they got lights blinking indicating where a train is arriving into the station. That could be implemented very easy here in New York. Fourth, let's get congestion pricing over the finish line, because New Jersey Transit Corporation published yesterday that they're selling a plushy bull teddy bear. Why we can't do the same thing with a deer, a dog, something similar to that? And last but not least, we need more police presence in the outer boroughs, especially Brooklyn, the Bronx, and Queens, and especially Staten Island. So with that said, I'll yield the rest of my time. Happy New Year, everybody. I'll see you guys in January.
Thank you for your remarks. Our next speaker will be Miriam Fisher, followed by John Orcutt.
Good morning. Am I audible?
Yep.
Okay. I'm going to speak, among other things, elevator, escalator outages. I heard the testimony Monday of Vice President Critchlow, I'm hoping I pronounce it right, excuse me, and applaud the steps the MTA is taking to improve elevator, escalator outages. But according to the report of Keith Powers of City Council, there are 56 elevators, 50 escalators privately owned and maintained. Mr. Critchlow said 88% are in service. That's 12% that are not. Most of the outages are the elevators that are privately owned and maintained. Announcements, auditory and visual, to help people with disabilities know in real time of changes. Here's, it may or may not be visible, but it's the digital signs that we see about the oncoming timing of the trains. But this is Washington, D.C., and it also says elevator outage. So the technology is there to alert people visually that there are problems with the elevators so they can plan ahead, not get stranded. Also, auditory. As staff is free from the booths, let them put up signs, use the loudspeaker announcements on the platforms, alert people who depend solely on elevators so they can plan and not get stranded. The passenger survey. Safety choices do not allow the choice of getting stranded on elevators. This is safety too. Bathrooms, more accessible bathrooms. 78 out of 133 bathrooms are accessible. More benches. They've been removed in a lot of.
Thank you for your remarks.
Thank you. More benches for everyone. They've been removed in.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be John Orcutt, followed by Mike Howard.
Good morning. I'm John Orcutt, representing Bike New York. We understand this morning that the board will hear an update on the MTA's Extending Transit's Reach program. That was a new program developed about a year ago that contains some new policy areas for the MTA, namely creating good bike paths on MTA bridges and creating effective bike parking at transit stops. Both of those goals are really important, especially with congestion pricing slated to be implemented in 2024, opening new bike routes from the Bronx, Queens, and the Rockaways, and really making it easy for people to connect bikes and transit couldn't be more timely as we're hoping to discourage extra traffic and congestion. Biking to transit is a hallmark of the best sustainable transportation systems around the world. And, somebody will say it, so let's just cut to the chase. That's not just something that Danish and Dutch people will do. New Yorkers have shown that if you build it, they will come. It's not an accident that the busiest city bike stations over the past decade have been at transit hubs like Grand Central Terminal, Penn Station, and Union Square. So we can do that. We can replicate that same effective door-to-door efficiency of bikes with the incredible speed and congestion defeating qualities of rail transit. We can do that at terminals along the Bronx City line. We can do that in Corona and the Rockaways. We can do that in Canarsie, and we can do that across parts of the suburban region. So we're really looking forward to the update for that plan and for your support to do more in that area. Thank you.
Thank you for your remarks. Our next speaker is Mike Howard, followed by Michael Ring.
Good morning and happy holidays. My name is Michael J. Howard. I prefer Mike. My testimony for the morning for today is it is time to add LED lights on the R62s that's running along on the 3 line and sometimes on the 1 line. Yeah, it's time for brighter lights inside those cars. There's brighter lights in the R62As, but the R62s running along on the 3 line needs to be bright lighted, and also camera safety, because I seen hidden cameras on the R46 and the R68s now. Hopefully more cameras will be installed on these cars. And also, cameras should be installed on the technology trains like the R142s, R143s, and R160s, all of them, and R179s. Those are the tech trains that need surveillance cameras. And they also need rules that says no smoking and no vaping. And just to make it short, before my time is up, I want to say that the Guy Brewer route, especially in the Rochdale Village section, needs bus lanes
for Q111, 113, and 114 to go faster. You know what I mean?
Thank you for your remarks. Our next speaker will be Michael Ring, followed by Charles Muniz.
First, happy all the holidays. I celebrate Festivus, and I get to come here and air my grievances on steroids. So, thank you for allowing this. A visual description of myself is that I'm just a white guy. I'm wearing a hoodie, and I do that so the people who can't see would know what I look like. But there are things that no one really could see about me that are important when it comes to mass transit. I don't look like a guy that needs a seat. My hands, I have a lot of neuropathy in my hands. I can't hold that pole. I have to put my arm around it. And my feet, I wear ankle-foot orthotics. I have pretty bad balance. So basically, on a bus or a train, I need to sit. But the little stickers above the seats don't really work, especially for a guy like me. People don't get up and give me a seat because I don't look like I need a seat. But the sticker says, won't you please give this seat up to the elderly or disabled? We've been talking about the Washington Metro a little bit lately. I was just there also. The sticker over those seats says, this seat must be available for people with disabilities. The language is a lot different. It tells people not to sit in it, and I observed in my very non-scientific one-day visit to Washington that those seats were available. People were not sitting in the seats that said, must be available. Just like when you're driving your car and there's a blue sign that says disabled parking only, people don't just pull in and go get their car when someone with a placard shows up. They leave it empty. So perhaps we could, I'm not asking you guys to spend another $1 billion on something. It wouldn't cost much to change the stickers, as you change stickers, rotate them out. You make announcements on trains, there's announcements on buses. Remind people not to sit in the seats that are reserved for people with disabilities. And it might help a lot. And it would get me, I won't have to hook my arm around the pole, and a lot of other people will get to work. Thank you.
Thank you for your remarks. Our next speaker will be Charles Muniz, followed by Alita Dupree. Charles, please unmute yourself.
Sorry about that. My name is Charles Muniz. I'm a transit worker and a member of TWU Local 100. The public is not paying the fares, and my coworkers are constantly being harassed and threatened daily. And the MTA and law enforcement are doing very little about it. I'm concerned about their and my safety. A few months ago, I wrote Richard Davey an email with ideas on how to prevent fare evasion and avoid congestion pricing, but he never responded. Anyway, I won't read the entire email now, but I will read the suggestions I gave him. If a fare invader is given a summons and refuses to pay these fines in a timely manner, then the MTA and the governor should implement the following. 1, send the summonses to one of those collection agencies. These pests will call so many times it will make the fare evaders pay up or at least drive them crazy. 2, take away their government benefits if they get any. 3, hold their state income tax refunds, similar to what happens when someone doesn't pay their student loans. 4, suspend driver's license. 5, garnish paychecks, etc. If you are sincere about improving ridership and revenue, then you will go along with my ideas. It doesn't take a genius to come up with solutions, just common sense. Thank you and have a good day.
Thank you for your remarks. Our next speaker will be Alita Dupree, followed by Jean Ryan.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair General Lieber and members. Alita Dupree for the record, she and her with Team Folds. It's good to be back with you. How about some subway car for you? The system that is legendary and stately. I think back to Monday, it seemed like some of our committee meeting timing was off, that some of them were starting early. That can be a challenge on Zoom with the narrow sign-up windows. So let's see what we can do to look at that. And didn't get to speak about it at diversity. I think our diversity statistics need to be more expansive. Perhaps I'll write you a letter about that to explain it more deeply sometime. And I hope to be with you soon again. Weather is a challenge in the winter, and I am concerned about cold weather. That's why I don't travel much in the in the wintertime, but we'll see. Maybe next month I'll be with you. And we want to keep working on our Omni and our escalators and elevators. And I do reiterate to you that my elevator and escalators experiences were good. And everybody that I knew in New York that I talked to, they didn't seem to have any issues. So we want to keep working on that. But so far, things are going okay for me. So with the ice and snow, we want to make sure we keep all the stairs and platforms clean. This trip and fall can be an issue. So overall, I'm looking forward to 2024. Hope we can get congestion pricing turned on. I wish you all a good holiday season, and you can never have enough Grand Central Terminal. Thank you.
Thank you for your remarks. Our next speaker will be Jean Ryan, followed by Monique Johnson.
Hi, I'm Jean Ryan, President of Disabled in Action. Just a minute, let me turn this off. Don't start. I don't want. Okay, I didn't want feedback. I'm Jean Ryan, President of Disabled in Action, and I have two topics today. First, the express bus continues to be a problem for me as a wheelchair user and everyone else who uses a wheelchair, except maybe for Q. But I had to ride sideways because the driver did not move the seats enough, so I could only fit on sideways. We're not allowed to ride on sideways. And I had to go out on the lift backwards, and it's a high lift, and it's scary to do that because you really can't see behind yourself to go out onto a lift. Also, today I'm going to read Monica Bartley's testimony for because when she came on Monday, there was a mix-up and she was not allowed to testify. Monica is a member of the Board of Disabled in Action of Metropolitan New York. Monica writes, "We need subway elevators that are reliable. I had to take the subway from Brooklyn to the city a few weeks ago. I took the bus to the subway station and I was so worried the entire trip. Will the elevators work? Fellow New Yorkers don't have that concern using the subway. Thankfully, the elevators worked. I wasn't that lucky on the return trip, though. The elevators were broken. I had to take a taxi. It shouldn't depend on luck. A broken elevator is an emergency. We are calling on Governor Hochul and the MTA to maintain the elevators, settle the case. We need a legally binding agreement. Thank you."
Thank you for your remarks. Our next speaker will be Monique Johnson, followed by Iris Kelly.
Good morning. My name is Monique Johnson. I'm a member of DIA, and I'm also a person that just go out and fight for people if I feel like that the law is being misused in any type of way. I'm here to talk to you today about, matter of fact, just ask you a question about this law settlement and not understanding why that you have not settled it yet. It's like y'all don't care, like y'all don't see us. We see y'all. Do y'all see us? You telling people over and over, and even your workers, that we don't matter, we matter. Even the tourists that come here, they matter, you matter, they matter. All of us that stand here to fight and we show up here, we matter. That's why we show up. Because we want to solve things. We don't want to go out and fight and be harassed. We just want to come to some conclusions to solve this lawsuit. It doesn't matter. Workers or anybody, it's like y'all don't see us. A lawsuit is only just to reply our rights back. It's like our rights are lost. Like we're nobody. We stand here, we come here, and y'all don't see us, but we see y'all. All we want is communication, unity, and community. That's all we want. And to solve this lawsuit problem. Y'all been having lawsuits going since 1992. Here we are, 2023. And I hope that you do not come in with the same mindsets that y'all had in 23, now in 2024. Thank you.
Thank you for your remarks. Our next speaker is Iris Kelly, followed by Jack Connors.
My name is Iris Kelly. My two regards are Accessoride and MTA along the railroad. With the railroad situation, we need a digital sign 6 and 7 foot back where we had time trains. They go to see what was going on because we have sight problem and not all of us tall people. Then move track 11 and 12 back to where it was Brooklyn for track 3 where it always was. Use the other one for Grand Central to show people go from the trains to the plane. They go that way, not making them walk to the other side. And then for the Accessoride, you need to get me off the share ride. That's no good for me. I'm going to work in the morning. I shouldn't be driving around in Brooklyn before going out to Queens. That is horrifying. Getting to work 9, 10 o'clock in the morning when I start at 8. This is a disgrace. Nobody wants to be late for work. They don't have a chance to get certified, say, oh, I'm coming to work. Yeah, this is my paperwork. I'm on time. No, I'm not. Every time I come to work, I have to charge my time. I'm losing my time now. I can't go on vacation because of your people charging me on time. Not even being there on time. We should be at. And thank you very much.
Thank you for your remarks. Our next speaker will be Jack Connors, followed by our final speaker for the day, Joe Rappaport.
Good morning. I'm Jack Connors, Research and Communications Associate at the Permanent Citizens Advisory Committee to the MTA, PCAC. It's the last board of the year, and we've got things to cheer. More riders on board, more frequent services here. And MTA leadership and board, it wouldn't have been possible without you. Extra credit goes to Governor Hochul and elected leaders in Albany who know the value of transit to the region. Thanks in great part to our friends in advocacy we hold dear. But the fight isn't over despite the budget zeros, thanks to MTA budget heroes, Kevin Willens and Jay. Congestion pricing is still not a cinch, with Governor Murphy playing the Grinch. To the thousands of commuters from the Garden State who are stuck in traffic every day with no other way, elected officials like Gov Murphy and Rep. Gottheimer are to blame, with no investment in NJ Transit, and canceled Bergen County Light Rail, really a shame. But our fight isn't over, we still must win. For cleaner air, less traffic, and better trains, buses, and subways, congestion pricing is the linchpin. Losing momentum and the money we'd see could bring us right back to the 70s. Been there, done that, we don't want it. A snapshot of today is much better, with $1.6 billion for 18 contracts up for votes. What's at stake for the region's riders if New Jersey wins out? $10 billion in critical subway and bus projects, more than $800 million in critical cuts for Metro North, and nearly $1 billion in critical cuts for the LIRR. They add up to safety, resiliency, state of good repair, and the system's future. Things all riders depend on. So it's crucial that those who support congestion pricing weigh in, so the feds understand they're just hearing from some polls being dim. As we embark on our last-ditch holiday shopping, we must also thank the folks at this year's pop-up market, truly show-stopping. Indeed, as we travel and revel and spread holiday cheer, we must thank the workers, nearly 70,000 strong, who keep our trains and buses chugging right along. Before we depart with a swipe, tap, or activation, pre-boarding, sending best wishes to all from PCAC for a great holiday and an even better 2024. Thank you.
Thank you for your remarks. Our final speaker for the day will be Joe Rappaport.
Good morning. I'm Joe Rappaport of the Brooklyn Center for Independence of the Disabled. At year end, as some previous speakers have done, let's take a look at the good news in 2023, the bad news, and suggest a few resolutions for the new year on the accessibility front. In good news, the MTA installed new elevators at stations across the system this year. 7th Avenue in Brooklyn, now accessible. 181st Street in Washington Heights. Court Street in Queens, accessible. Took some lawsuits, but here you are making stations accessible. Congratulations. Unfortunately, 2023 is less bright on the elevator maintenance front. Another year goes by without a settlement of our now ancient lawsuit. I've heard some truly bizarre arguments about why you won't settle this lawsuit, including that you're doing a wonderful job maintaining elevators. If you are, then it shouldn't be so hard to settle. But instead, your buddies at Paul Weiss rake in the dollars. On Access-A-Ride, you finally managed to take a stellar program on demand and whittle it down to a much less useful option. Meanwhile, broker service is plagued by delays, drivers who can't communicate with riders, and overall substandard service. You can do better because you did do better with Phase 1 of On Demand. On congestion pricing, you have a flawed plan for a disability exemption. For example, a blind person who needs to travel by car into the central business district, doesn't own that car, wouldn't get an exemption under your current plan, as I understand it. Does that make sense? For 2024, fix the disability exemption plan. Settle the lawsuits against you. Get Paul Weiss off the dole. Sit down with advocates and our attorneys and make the system better. Happy New Year.
Thank you, Chair Lieber. That concludes the public comment session.
Okay. We're going to be going slightly out of order in a couple different ways because of the votes required for certain actions. But first of all, I want to hear from Rich because there was a significant subway impact from a derailment in Stillwell today. Rich?
Yeah, so thankfully it wasn't that significant, Chair. About 8:30 this morning, we had an in-train leaving Coney Island. No customers were on the train. It was coming into service. The last two cars derailed. Looked like it was over a switch. So right now, we're turning trains at 86th Street, so we're not running between 86th and Stillwell. We have folks on scene. No injuries for our employees either, I should say. To re-rail that, and we'll obviously do a full review. So, modest impacts to service, no injuries, no customer were on the train, which is good news, but obviously we don't like mainline derailments, so we'll get to the bottom of it.
Talking about for the next capital program, which is investing in. We tend to have a lot of challenges when you're coming at it when we're bringing trains out of the yard into service, and that has to do with some of the conditions in the yard and especially the switches that control access to the active tracks. It's one of the areas that Rich and Demetrius and I and Jamie have been talking about that needs to be invested in the next capital program. This kind of speaks to that issue. Okay. As I said, we're going to be going a little out of order, but first I would like to, first of all, we do have a quorum page, correct?
Yes, we have a quorum.
Okay. Before I do my update for the board and maybe out of order, do ask for some votes on key procurements. Let's go into executive session to allow the board to discuss matters related to collective bargaining. May I have a motion for that? Jamie, thank you. Blanca Lopez, thank you. Second. All in favor of going into executive session? Thank you very much.
Hello, G-Train riders. Starting this fall, we're working to completely rebuild the signal system on the Crosstown G line. The current signal system is 80 years old, which causes delays and makes service unreliable. To fix this, we're investing in Communications-Based Train Control, or CBTC, a modern system that will significantly improve safety, reliability, and capacity on the G line. Once we're finished, we'll be able to safely run G trains faster and closer together, resulting in more reliable service. We've already upgraded signals on the L and 7 lines, and on-time service has significantly improved. This work requires a lot of time when we can't run trains. We've scheduled most of our signal work for late night and overnight hours when fewer people ride. During this time, normal G service will operate between Church Avenue and Bedford-Nostrand Avenues. A free shuttle bus will replace G service between Bedford-Nostrand Avenues and Court Square. For service to Court Square, transfer to one of these shuttle buses. This is a long-term project with several phases of service interruptions. Please visit mta.info/alerts for the latest information. Thanks for your patience as we work to bring better service to G-Train riders, and thank you for riding with us.
If you ride the subway often, you might have heard that a train is delayed because its brakes were activated. But what does that really mean? Let's take a look at the 3 ways a train's brakes can be activated. During regular train service, a train operator uses the service brake to slow and stop the train. If the train operator notices something dangerous on the train or the tracks ahead, the train operator applies the emergency brakes manually. This releases the air pressure from the braking system, requiring the train to use friction brakes only to bring the train to a stop as quickly as possible. If a passenger pulls the emergency cord, this will apply the train's automatic brakes, but a sudden stop could present harm to yourself or others. The emergency cord or handle should never be pulled while the train is in motion, unless the movement of the train presents an imminent danger to life and limb. It's only safe to pull the cord when you are in a station, where emergency services can get to you faster. Once the emergency brake is pulled, the brakes have to reset before the train can move again. A train's emergency brakes can also become activated by a tripping device. This is a small lever on the tracks that quickly triggers the emergency brakes and stops the train when it encounters something unusual on its journey, like debris or a signal malfunction. The train crew is required to inspect the train inside and out whenever the brakes are activated, to make sure everyone is safe and to locate what triggered the brakes. And sometimes this occurs in hard-to-reach spaces that take the train crew longer to navigate. The train crew removes the object that triggered the tripping device using a shoe paddle. If everything looks okay to the train crew, the train is back in action within a few minutes. But in the meantime, conductors are always actively communicating with you and keeping you updated. So next time you hear that, or from the bottom of a train before coming to a quick stop, remember, it's for your safety. We're always working to reduce any unnecessary use of emergency brakes on your subway ride. But when properly applied, they are vital to our transit system that keeps millions of New Yorkers safely moving every day.
Hello and welcome to MTA Arts and Design's Guide on Bloomberg Connects. I'm Sandra Bloodworth, Director of Arts and Design, and I'm pleased to share with you this experiential guide to the artwork across New York's transit and rail system. Since 1985, Arts and Design has commissioned 400 site-specific contemporary artworks providing meaningful connections between subway and rail stations, neighborhoods, and our diverse ridership. Traveling through the MTA network, you will experience a first-rate art museum of permanent works created in mediums such as mosaic, metal, and glass. You may also discover our extremely popular temporary art programs through Music Under New York performances, illustrated posters, photography light boxes, digital artworks, and poetry in motion. Use the new interactive map to locate artworks on your commute or plan your next adventure with our curated self-guided tours accessed through the homepage. Bloomberg Connect's digital guide makes information on MTA Arts and Design collection accessible to everyone interested in learning more. We invite you to begin your journey within New York's extraordinary Contemporary Art Museum.
You see this one, the 401, the 202, the Brookville. Every engine does the same thing, but slightly different. Working on trains is pretty cool.
Being an electrician here is special because there's not many opportunities to work on equipment this large. These are like supersized.
The power that these things are able to generate, it just makes it that amazing, that cool.
These engines are diesel engines. It uses diesel power to create electrical energy, and that's what propels these trains.
As an electrician, our daily objectives are to maintain this equipment. It's changing light bulbs, repairing any wiring, any damage, any sensors, any transformers.
Anything that has to do with the electronics for the trains. I work on a lot of PTC, positive train control. There's a warning system, it's a braking system and control system. For example, there might be a 30-mile-an-hour turn, and if the engineer doesn't control that, the train automatically brakes on its own. That's the most important system that we check here.
Our job is very important because it makes it safe to be out on the road for the passengers.
I fix everything as if somebody's watching all the time. I make sure my job is complete and the train is safe.
It's a railroad lifestyle. I enjoy the people. I enjoy the work. You create friendships here.
Being an Air Force vet, there's a pride in what you do. I had that pride in what I do here on the railroad. I get to see the results of my work every day, the trains going by, and I know I was a big part of that.
Being an electrician here is so special that we're able to, and lucky enough, to work on this equipment.
Sometimes the public may call us train drivers. Honestly, it doesn't bother me because I know they don't know. My name is Keisha Cole. I'm a train operator, and I've been with MTA for 6 years. I work on the 7 line. It's approximately 21 stops from Main Street to 34th Street, and it takes about 36 minutes from end to end.
My name is Jim Van Name. I'm a train operator for New York City Transit. I've been here about 3.5 years. I operate the train on the Q line, which end to end is approximately 44 stops, and it takes me about an hour to complete.
My earliest train memory is I was a kid. I got on the F train with my mom. The first time I was on the train, I was excited. It was fun.
I was raised on Staten Island, and my friends and I used to take the Staten Island ferry over to the city, and we used to ride the train all over the place. That's probably where I got my first love of the subways.
As a train operator, there are 2 different ways you can pick up your train. You can pick up your train in the yard as a put-in, which means you okay your train for service and bring it into the terminal station, which is the last stop on the train line. Or you can actually pick it up from the terminal station. When preparing my train for service, I do various checks to make sure it's safe for myself and for the public. Once my day starts, I have about 3 round trips. I take passengers from Main Street to 34th Street and back to Main Street. That's 1 round trip.
I start over at the yard, and then I have to do what we call a put-in. I have to prep the train for service, and then they send me out over to Stillwell Terminal, and then I go into service. I do my 2 trips up to 96th Street and back, and that pretty much completes my day. It usually takes anywhere from 8 to 8.5 hours. At the end of the day, the 2 ways of finishing the job is to just walk off the train at the terminal station at the last stop and just sign out and go home, or to do a layup, take the train from the terminal station back to the yard, lay it up, put it away for the evening, and go home from there.
I love the fact that I'm moving this big machine by myself. There have been times when I'm operating the train and I think that this is the greatest job ever. The things that I get to see when I'm going down the line and I'm seeing the sun come up, it's just so beautiful.
This is my dream job. I love this job. And some of the amazing moments I see in this job is when I'm going over the Manhattan Bridge, sometimes at sunrise to see the sun coming up, or even better, sunset, to see the sun setting behind the Manhattan Bridge is quite a sight. I pinch myself that I'm in such a great job and have that opportunity to see such great things.
I enjoy transporting people from place to place. It's just a good thing. I feel like I'm doing something special.
I love trains. I love operating the trains. I love being a part of New York City Transit. And knowing that I'm helping people get through their day and get to where they need to be gives me a lot of satisfaction.
What does a bus operator do?
John Winicki, I'm a New York City bus operator, and I've been operating a bus for 26 years.
I work out of the Michael J. Quill Depot in Manhattan, and I operate the M60 bus. As a young child, I used to ride the bus with my father. He was a bus operator at a Flushing depot. Just watching him driving the bus, it made me want to do the same thing.
A bus operator's day starts out at the crew dispatcher's office. They either go out and see the yard dispatcher, get a bus, make sure the bus is fit and ready for service. They check a variety of things, and they'll then pull out and start their day. Or a bus operator may not have to pull out a bus, but may relieve a bus out on the road.
I really enjoy driving the bus. There's a lot of responsibility, different challenges, definitely the heavy traffic, a lot of bicyclists, scooters, cars cutting you off. Could be a little crazy at times.
Some of the challenges a bus operator faces on a day-to-day basis are heavy traffic conditions, and they have to be able to deal with different customer issues while driving this large vehicle in some really difficult conditions where they have to be very vigilant.
The big part of the job is customer service, dealing with a lot of types of people. A lot of customers are grateful and they thank you and makes you feel appreciated that you got them to and from their destination safe as possible.
The role of a bus operator is probably one of the most maybe understated jobs of importance for New York City. The professionalism, the tough job that they do on a day-to-day basis is invaluable. Those bus operators keep New York City moving.
A lot of times after a long, difficult day, you're like, thank God I made it and got everyone to where they're going safely, no problems, no incidents. Kind of makes you feel proud at the end of the day.
What does a welder do?
Maribel Rivera, CMA, car maintainer. I'm a welder at Transit, and I've been working here for 20 years. Some of the things I work on are like door operator arms, the linkage that goes on the door. It's a very important part of the train. Welding has to be done precisely in order to keep those doors safely opening and closing so nobody gets hurt. I also work on parts that have come to me in an emergency and they need to go out right away to be replaced on the trains that are going out. So it's a challenge to me. And I like a challenge.
Welding is so important to New York City Transit because everything's made out of metal. There are certain parts that have wear on them that we have to refurbish. We can't just buy new parts because no one makes them. So we fabricate many parts, and there's always repairs to be made, and we need experienced high-end welders that can do any kind of welding.
I have to create a safe product, a solid weld with no contaminations or impurities, where that weld will stand vibrations from the train and keep the ridership safe. It's pretty detailed work. And that's what I like about welding.
I would say that the welders we have at New York City Transit are among the finest in the city. Our welders from this shop, 207 Street Overhaul Shop, they've cut trains out of tunnels. They were at the World Trade Center site working on the scrap heap. I go to bed at night knowing that we have the best that the city has to offer in a very difficult and a very important role.
By presenting a good product, a safe product, I'm able to help transit keep trains moving and the ridership safe.
Kevin Neal, we're going back in session.
While in executive session, the board discussed and voted affirmatively on labor agreements between MTA and various labor unions. So am I up there? Did you show the video? Okay. Hey, Shanifa, can we see a video?
Sure, thank you. So as an agency, we've accomplished so much this year, and as a team, there are lots to be proud of. Many of our successes were on display at Monday's committee meetings. But the customer team worked to put together a short video displaying many of these successes and achievements. So special thanks to Jean Ribeiro and Matt Zoller for the execution in getting this done. With that, I'll turn it over to the tech folks to roll the video. Thanks.
Cutting costs is a challenge, but you've answered the call to do that, and I appreciate that. That helped us go to the legislature and say, it's not just about more money, it is saying they're also re-examining their own operation. The success of the MTA is not negotiable. It has to happen. You must be successful, and you can't be always looking over your shoulder. So my commitment to the MTA is a commitment to the future of New York.
The governor led with her executive budget proposal. I must say that I'm thrilled with it. It funds the financial needs of the MTA, adds funds for greater safety and security, and is recurring. It will provide MTA financial stability through 2026 and beyond.
It's way more bright and light up here. It feels more open space and air.
New Yorkers should know that a lot of work and care and thought was put into making this as accessible and open for New Yorkers as possible.
You can work 100 years in public transportation and never have a day like today.
And East Side Access got done.
Every craftsman loves to look back on their work. They take pride in doing this kind of work and seeing the reactions we get from the customers. The feedback has been tremendous.
Our paratransit team continues to hit it out of the park. Highest ridership since COVID, better on-time performance, better pickup times, and continued improvements in customer satisfaction.
I love the job! No.
We're providing more customer service. We are outside engaging with the customers.
Coming out of the booth allows me to interact with the customer on a one-on-one basis.
Our subways team has been adding more service thanks to the governor and the legislature over these past couple months. 22 of the 29 routes have seen great improvement. Customer satisfaction, on-time performance, and trip times.
We're in the process of redesigning our bus network across the 5 boroughs. Our goal is faster and more reliable buses for everyone.
The MTA team, who really was out in every crevice of Queens, that really should be the blueprint of how agencies do outreach across our city.
We have 26 separate ADA projects under construction now, 4 in the final stages of work. That we have 67 ADA projects being completed as part of our current MTA capital program. $5 billion being invested in ADA accessibility. Transit needs to be fully accessible to every New Yorker.
Paratransit is proud to move our customers with disabilities around the city. We continue to make improvements to our Access-a-Ride system with record customer satisfaction and improved on-time performance.
We've often talked about safety of our employees is absolutely paramount, and we're investing to make sure that our bus operators are safe. So what we've developed is a fully enclosed cockpit with electronic mirrors.
Through the end of November, we are down in overall crime in the New York City subway system.
One of my friends, they subway surf, and I know his family definitely worries about that.
Ride inside, stay alive.
I just had an audition. My veins are popping out all sweaty, but I am excited.
Good job, Queen.
MTA Music Under New York, for a New Yorker busker, it's like the badge of honor.
Hello and welcome to MTA Arts and Design's Guide on Bloomberg Connects, this experiential guide to the artwork across New York's transit and rail system.
This is Pride Month, obviously, here in the United States, of course, also in New York City Transit. Happy Pride Month. We're talking to our customers here today from the famous landmark Stonewall.
Anybody sick and tired of gridlock in New York City? Yeah. Anybody think we deserve better transit, especially those who live and work here? Yeah. Anyone think that people with disabilities deserve to have more accessibility when they travel through this city? Yes. Anybody want cleaner air for our kids and for future generations? Yes. Well, then you love congestion pricing, right? Yes.
In 2024, we plan to rebrand the automated bus lane enforcement program as automated camera enforcement to better reflect the wider impact that we would have on city streets, especially when it comes to keeping our bus stops clear, as well as catching those violators that double park on bus lanes.
No subway lines were injured when we did that. Okay.
Today is an important day for the MTA. We're unveiling the long-awaited 20-year needs assessment, which is the most detailed inventory of the MTA network that's ever been done.
We're focused on rebuilding, which means achieving state of good repair. Improvements, continuing to evolve our system to make it ADA accessible, prepared for climate risks, and better at providing timely information and access to riders. And we also evaluate proposals to expand the system.
I always say that transit is the antidote to climate change. You know, we are the reason that New York City and the region is the greenest metropolitan area in the United States. We also are committed to greening our own operations. We are on track to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by our operations by 85% by 2040.
We put a lot of resources into mitigating the potential disruptions caused by flash flooding to significant effect. Bottom line is we kept the city moving throughout the storm.
I say it all the time, but mass transit for New Yorkers and MTA service is like air and water for New York City. It is what we need to survive. We need it to survive. We cannot survive without it. So, with apologies to the gentleman who said that our board meetings are too upbeat, I love that, and I just want to say Shanifa and Jean and everybody who worked on that. It does really capture a year of incredible accomplishment. It was an incredible year, and it would not have been possible without the amazing team of people who work here. Let's just pause and recognize, you know, we in some ways are the faces of the MTA to the public, but the real folks who deliver every day are 70,000 folks who show up every day and who put their heart into it and sometimes take risks. We honor them, and we need to do it every day. I just want to use my time to acknowledge some of those folks. First, on Grand Central Madison, MTA's own white whale, if you know the reference. Some people have been working on that project for 20 years. A few of them even put up retirement so they could take it all the way to the finish line. And now there are thousands of people passing through it every day, 5 million total since the terminal opened in February. And it was a couple days after it opened, it was already the 4th largest passenger railroad terminal in the United States. Grand Central Madison service alone is, I think, the 4th largest commuter railroad operation in the United States by itself. So just bear that in mind as we work out the kinks. And it's also incredibly, as a facility, it looks like, you know, exactly like the day it opened, and it has an amazing kind of caliber of customer experience that I think we're all shooting for. And I want to give credit to the folks who run it, starting with GCM Terminal Manager Jen Uline, who is on the left there, talking to Kathy Rinaldi. Jen has done an amazing job, as I said, making that the flagship of a transportation facility in New York. On ridership, as everybody's been talking about, we have seen tremendous growth. The photo says it all. 1 billion customer. We had 1 billion rides in 2023, and that milestone arrived 6 weeks earlier than last year. And just last week was the busiest week in terms of ridership on both commuter railroads, the second busiest week on the subways. We're hitting it all. And we're not just hitting it for New Yorkers and tourists, but like the guy in the video, in the photo rather, that's a commuter from New Jersey. So that's somebody who will benefit from the dollars that we invest in the MTA out of congestion pricing. He rides the bus over the George Washington Bridge and gets on the A train at the 175th Street subway stop. So let that not be forgotten in the discussion about congestion pricing. The ridership upsurge is partly a function of so-called return to office, but do not be misled. The caliber of mass transit service is a huge factor in companies getting people to come back to office. That's why the New York City business community, in a kind of a man bites dog moment, supported increasing taxes on them to fund mass transit. They said to us, you're right, we want 5-day-a-week first-class service, even though we're letting people come to work, 1 to 3 days a week. And they stepped up and supported an increase in the payroll mobility tax for New York City businesses. That's one of the reasons that we were able to keep our service going at a high level and to do what Rich and Demetrius and Frank and Kathy and Rob Free achieved in terms of on-time performance, which is amazing. Now, each agency has amazing planners who are responsible for developing routes and schedules and making sure we optimize things. People like Ian Martin at New York City Transit Operations Plan. These are the data wonks and wonkettes, as we know them. These are the folks who work their tails off every day to optimize the schedule so that we can deliver that caliber of service. It also helped that this year we are seeing the impact of the governor and the mayor's COPS Cameras and Care program, which was initiated in the last few weeks of 2022. Just take a moment to recognize that we have a great partner at the NYPD Transit Bureau. Chief Kemper, who appears at the committee meetings, really has been an exceptional, as I said, partner day in and day out for the MTA. And he and his team are largely responsible for the fact that we are going to end the year 8 or 9%. In subway crime, we're going to be 8 or 9% below pre-pandemic levels, and that's a pretty great sign. But the folks who carry out the care aspect of COPS, cameras, and care don't always get the recognition, and they're both law enforcement professionals and homeless outreach professionals who go out to work every night on the platforms. No secret, we have at the end-of-line stations, not all of them, but many of them, operations where we meet trains and we see folks who may be sheltering on the system, who need services, and there are interactions to try to persuade them to accept services and hopefully end sheltering in the system. And one of the key players in this is Tin Mai, who is a NYPD inspector, and she runs the NYPD Transit Bureau's homeless outreach operation. She is an unbelievable dynamo of energy, and she brings it every day and making a lot of difference in those people's lives and in the environment on the subway as well. So we have a lot more to accomplish in the safety and security area, but I just want to acknowledge Inspector Mai as well as Chief Kemper. In a few months, we are preparing to implement congestion pricing, an idea that's been around for decades, going back to the Lindsay administration, and certainly been very real in the discussion since the Bloomberg administration. It has been 4 years since the state legislature adopted congestion pricing and said that it was the law of the state of New York. As I always say, people sometimes get the impression that I went on a drinking binge and came up with this idea myself, but it is the law of the state of New York. But people have been working tirelessly to study the impact so that we could comply with the federal environmental law and get this implemented. To study the impact of intersections going all the way to Philadelphia, as you know from some of the debates about the litigation, all the traffic modeling and the air quality modeling is hugely important, and resulted in us getting the federal environmental approval. The Traffic Mobility Review Board and the environmental process could not have been successful without people like Stephen Krim and Leah Flax, who worked nights and weekends to provide decision makers with the data and the analysis they needed to come up with, to prove out the environmental review, but also to come up with a fair tolling proposal, which is what we adopted a couple weeks ago. And the essence of that is these massive computer models that forecast how the region would respond to endless permutations of different tolling scenarios. And it takes a couple weeks to run these models. And these are some of the folks, along with many others, who made them functional. Now, we all need to know that how important congestion pricing is to the future of our system as a funding source for the capital program. Now we're starting to look ahead to the next 5-year plan beyond, based on the 20-year needs assessment. I've talked about it a lot. You heard about it in the video. 6 million components and assets examined and reviewed. Compare that to the coloring book-sized documents that you used to get for the 20-year needs assessment. Come on. I mean, this is a totally different level of work, a Herculean undertaking by folks from across the organization. And some of them are quite young, and there's a fellow named Robert Purim who's portrayed here. We weren't able to get a solo photo of him, so we showed him with everybody else who worked on the 20-year needs assessment, Jamie included. Hopefully, he and some of the junior folks who have joined the MTA, there's great brain power and talent coming to the MTA from a generation that's passionate about urban issues and environmental progress and climate change and transit being at the center of all that. And we hope that Robert and others will be here 20 years from now to see how we've made good on the promise of their report. Queens bus redesign, talked about a little bit from the podium, and obviously in our end-of-year video. We released the proposed final plan last week. It's a major improvement over the map that we have now, which has barely evolved from the old trolley system that it was based on 70 years ago. From the jump, it has been an incredible customer-driven process with literally hundreds of public meetings, thousands of comments received online, no concerns too minor to be factored in and considered. And one of the central players in this is somebody you all know well, Kate Contino, who supervises the public comment period during many of our meetings. And Kate, in her spare time, is also the director of special projects for our government and community relations team. The whole team has done amazing work. Will Schwartz, whom you know, is the leader of that group. But I especially want to call out Kate and Lucille and Danny and everybody who has worked on the Queens bus redesign. Again, doubling a little bit on what was in the video, the picture here is a Hollywood Squares type mashup of all the different elevator completions that we've had since 2020. 8 so far this year. There are 4 in the final stages of construction. Jamie, we hope we're going to knock out a couple of them before year end. Amazing progress. Nobody knows more about elevator openings than Agron Gashi. He's hiding in the back row of this photo at the Grand Street opening. He has been the project CEO for 5 of the completed stations this year, and he's also the project CEO for a couple that are headed towards completion. If anyone can do it, it's Agron, and he has been an amazing project CEO on accessibility, and we really want to acknowledge him. I also want to shout out to our federal partners. There was a transition in the FTA regional leadership. Steve Goodman, who has been amazing to work with for the MTA, right next door at Bowling Green, has been replaced by Mike Collada, who's the acting FTA regional administrator, another great partner, and that is a source of strength. Do not underestimate the importance of working well with your major funders. Biggest accomplishment I saved for last, which is the budget. We talk about it a lot. So much has been done outside the MTA to balance our books, led by Governor Hochul, who prevailed on the legislature to make it possible for us to have Kevin Willen's famous 5 zeros. So huge credit to the governor and the legislature. But not to be forgotten, a major plank of that budget agreement, and I'm going to keep talking about it so it doesn't get lost in the sauce, was the MTA delivering $400 million of savings starting in 2024. We've already acknowledged the financial wizardry of CFO Kevin Willens. I kind of recognize him right there. And the agency presidents who drove all of these changes. But there were staff who were really, we started this at the beginning of the year, and nobody worked harder on it than Sapna Shah. That's her on the right with the MTA team at this year's breast cancer walk in Central Park. Sapna got her start in buses, piloting predictive maintenance technologies, and she's now at Metro North, where she's helping to come up with new ways to better maintain our assets more efficiently, to do it with less spending, so that we can deliver more to our customers at a reasonable cost. So that is good government in action. And good government in action, I have to speak to our friends in the audience. This is what our incredible ecosystem of transit advocates want and deserve to see, and why you all show up. Transit in New York is thriving in part because, unlike so many other cities, we here have a coalition of transit advocates who are super well informed, who know how to work the press, and perhaps most important, who cultivate their own constituencies and make sure that the elected officials know about it. You are part of our successes. Now, you know, we understand that when you show up at MTA board meetings, it's not always to give us a pat on the back, but by making your voices heard, you are making a difference, whether you want to say that you can't get enough Grand Central, or you want to ring the alarm about the shortcomings of Stressor Ride, or even if you're just a white man in a hoodie who occasionally wears a green baseball cap. We just do need to say that we do appreciate you being here, and what you do is helping to bring attention to the importance of transit, to hold us accountable, and to reinforce our shared goals. So even when we're on the occasionally debating issues, I do need to emphasize that we appreciate you and we want to say thank you. Thank you to the incredible leadership team at the MTA, who are mostly in the room now, and at the agencies, some of whom are represented here. We could not be hitting all these successes that we're celebrating, maybe a little too self-congratulatory, but you have to celebrate success, and it wouldn't be possible without this incredible leadership team. So have very, very happy holidays, and looking forward to a great 2024 with all of you again. Thanks. We're going to have go a little bit out of order, because I want to do the committee business before we move to the special presentation, because there are some time commitments here that I need to be respectful of. So first of all, let me turn it over to Kevin for the adoption of the budget.
Thank you, Jano. We met with in Finance Committee, and the committee, as Neil can report, recommended approval of the budget. As you know, this is based on the November financial plan that we presented to everybody. Again, it's to highlight it, it's a budget that everybody should be proud of at $19.3 billion, which actually reflects lower real spending since 2019, really driven by the work of the agencies to put on the table the operating savings. And so it's a budget that we're all proud of, specifically given where we were a year ago, and then the direction by the board to the legislature and the governor about, needing to invest in the system, and then, specifically the leadership of the governor, and then the action by the legislature, which, as Jano presented, has allowed us to, project 5 years of balanced budgets. This is in contrast to a lot of other transit agencies across the country who are just grappling with, very large deficits exceeding 25% of their budgets that they need fixed right away because they waited till the federal money's running out. So there's the staff summary in front of you, which we recommend the adoption of the 2024 final proposed budget and 4-year financial plan. Also authorize MTA staff to initiate administrative procedures with respect to the fare increases that are projected not for next year, for 2025, but again, we need to have approval on administrative procedures, which is kind of our standard materially put in the adoption information, and authorizes the staff to do other actions consistent with the financial plan in terms of managing expenses and applying funds, and implement the policies set forth in the budget. So with that.
Okay. Well, I'll take a motion, and then we'll open it up for comments or questions. Lisa Soren, motion. Mr. Jones, second. Board comments or questions about the budget? Mr.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And just to go back to your presentation in the video, congratulations on an amazing 2023. It's been an extraordinary year, and not the least of which because of our senior senator's hat at the Grand Central Madison opening. Let me just make 4 brief comments about the budget. One, we should be really proud of this budget. It's a real change of what we went into the year with. The governor, with her incredible leadership, the legislature solving a new problem we have, which is changing work patterns. The ridership changes are focused, they are not changing, and they have changed the nature of our budget. And so thank you, Kevin, for your leadership, Jano, and the legislature, and especially the governor, for what has happened. But it does reflect a significant change in our revenue. We used to have 50% of revenue coming from tolls and fares, and now we have significantly less than that, and that's for the foreseeable future. The magic of what the governor and the legislature did was found other sources, taxes, future revenues that we're going to get from casino licensing, for example. But make no mistake, this is a different budget which we have less direct control over. Part of that is something I've said for many years. I'm a big fan of labor. I'm supportive of what they do. They make this city work. They make this agency work. And yet, at the same time, we have to be mindful that we're raising wages around 3% a year now. We raise fares of less than 2% in terms of the yield. So that's an automatic imbalance that we have to solve in some way every year. It's not a problem necessarily, but it is a fact of the budget, and we have to be mindful of that. The last thing I want to say is that, Kevin, you identified in the budget some real risks. You talked about the risks of what's happening in the economy. We've certainly talked about fare evasion, which is a major and pernicious impact on this budget, and it is not going away. I actually appreciate one of our public speakers earlier saying there should be some major enforcement. I know we're doing that, Paige, but it is a problem. But ultimately, the one thing I'll say is I'm buoyed by what's happening in the economy. I'm feeling good about maybe it's fair, maybe we should all knock on wood collectively about the soft landing that is occurring, but inflation is abating, and I think the notion that maybe the risks are not as risky anymore, at least in the near term, is a pretty good thing. So I wholeheartedly support this budget and ask each of us to do the same.
Thank you. Anybody else wishing to be heard? Okay, we have a motion on the floor and a second. All in favor? Any opposition or abstention? The budget is approved. Thank you. Now for committee reports and regular board business. The minutes of the December 6th board meeting and the November committee minutes from each committee have been distributed to all members. Any corrections or omissions? Not at this time. Hearing none, the minutes are approved as distributed. I'll provide the first committee report. I chaired the Governance Committee Monday and report the following. There was one item for board approval, non-substantive revision to the MTA's governance guidelines. The committee recommends this item, and I move it. Is there a second? Mr. Jones? Thank you. All in favor? Any opposition or abstention? The guidelines are approved. Ms. Barbas, the Bridge and Tunnel report, please.
Chair, the Bridge and Tunnels Committee met Monday, and there are no items to report.
Thank you. Staying with you, Ms. Barbas, for Capital Program report, where there are some items.
The Capital Program Committee met on Monday and reports the following. Construction and Development has 22 actions for a proposed total expenditure of $2.6 billion. I will present the items in two parts. First, on Monday, the committee reviewed 18 items, of which 13 are competitive awards, 2 are contract modifications, and 3 are ratifications totaling $1.6 billion. The committee recommends these items, and I move them.
Second? Ms. Lopez, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition or abstention? The items are approved.
Next, C&D staff and procurement teams were able to finalize an additional 3 items. These items were competitive awards for important capital projects and total $1 billion. Staff summaries for each have been distributed to the board and are included in today's materials. The committee brings these 3 items for board consideration and vote.
Okay. Just to remind folks, these were, we said to the board that there were some negotiations that were ongoing and that we might have some so-called walk-ins. These were included in the materials distributed more than 24 hours ago. Any questions or comments on these 3 additional board items? If not, I'll make a motion. May I have a second? Mr. Chu, all in favor? Any opposition or abstention? Thank you. The complete C&D procurement package is approved. Congratulations, Mr. Barbas and the Mr. Torres-Springer, Ms. Barbas, Mr. Torres-Springer, Mr.
Both Jamies.
Jamies, both Jamies. He has enough names. I don't need to give him another one. But that's, as a result of this, we will be, Jamie, what do we estimate the end of year procurement is?
That is, Chair, we're you know, as you know, we set a target at the beginning of this year, $10 billion in total awards. We won't hit that because of the unfortunate delays to congestion pricing, but we are still shooting for a very significant number despite that, likely exceeding $8 billion. And if I may just say that the we did talk about this in detail at CPC on Monday, but the items that the board just approved are major emblematic contributions to state of good repair, accessibility, and sustainability. Accessibility, the additional procurements that Ms. Barbas mentioned include the largest ADA package in the subway system ever for 13 stations to be made ADA accessible. That's package 5, as well as second major package that we've done for Long Island Railroad, which will make Forest Hills and Hollis Station accessible. And
Mr.
also,
Nierenberg, would you please note that the Hollis Station has been approved for construction? Okay, thank you.
And reconstruct the Babylon Station, including its elevators, to bring it to a state of good repair. And I forgot to mention, bring the Broadway Junction complex to ADA accessibility. That's really a 3-station complex. It's huge. It's the 3rd busiest station in Brooklyn and a community well deserving of a rebuilt station, ADA accessibility. And I also want to echo thank you to the federal government, including Senator Schumer and our colleagues at the FTA for their support of many of the projects that the board has approved this morning.
Okay, that was one thing we really wanted to get done today, and thank you for the summary. Ms. Lopez, would you present the Railroad Joint Committee report?
Of course. The Joint Railroad Committee met Monday and reports the following. There are 3 action items on behalf of Metro North Railroad. The first item seeks board approval to enter a contract to accept funds from a congestion mitigation air quality grant from the New York State Department of Transportation to support connecting services in the Metro North territory. The second item seeks board approval for Metro North to enter into a 10th Memorandum of Understanding with the City of Newburgh related to parking and ferry landing facilities used by the Newburgh Beacon Ferry. And the third item seeks board approval of an amendment to the Metro North and Westchester County Department of Public Works and Transportation employer-based shuttle agreement. The committee considered these items, however, a quorum of members was not present. I submit these items for board consideration and vote.
Motion? Soren, second. Dr. Rizzo, all in favor? Opposition or abstention? Action items carry. Ms. Lopez.
There are 3 non-competitive procurement actions for a totaling $17 million. The committee also considered these items. However, a quorum of members was not present. I submit these procurement actions for board consideration and vote.
I'll make the motion. Is there a second? Thank you, Mr. Chu. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition or abstention? Items carry. Ms. Lopez.
This concludes the Joint Railroad Committee report.
Thank you very much. Board Member Jones, may I impose on you for the New York City Transit report?
The New York City Transit and Bus Committee met on Monday and reports the following. There were 2 competitive items for approval for a total of $967,300,000. The first item is a contract award for the purchase of 205 low-floor battery electric buses. This contract was finalized after the committee concluded business Monday. However, the staff summary was distributed to board members and included in the board materials prepared for today. The second item is a contract award for the purpose of 224 low-floor diesel buses. This item was discussed at the committee meeting. However, a quorum was not present. I submit both procurement items for consideration and vote by the entire board.
Motion. Is there a second? Ms. Barbas. I just want to ask Jamie to explain where we are with this procurement and why we're still buying diesel buses.
Sure, happy to share. Start with the most positive aspect of this, which is this is the first major order of all electric buses. This is, as Mr. Jones said, 205 low-floor battery electric buses, but the contract also includes options for up to 1,215 more, which puts us on a path to a zero-emission fleet by 2040. At the same time, while we make that transition, we are continuing to invest in the replacement of our rolling stock with diesel. It's simply we are the market maker here, and Rich, it looks like Rich wants to jump in on that.
I'll bail him out. I think probably because in fact we asked him to, Chair. But in all seriousness, we discussed this at committee. The reason is the 60-foot diesel buses is what we're purchasing. This is part of our transition. They will be. Their shelf life, if you will, is 12 years, so they'll be phasing out in the late 2030s. But really 2 reasons. One is the market doesn't quite yet have what we believe is a reliable electric 60-foot bus. There are a couple out there, but we're not feeling quite confident yet enough to invest in those. That's one. And then 2, as you know, with Jamie's and his team's support, building out the electric infrastructure is still an ongoing project for us. So over the next couple of years, we will be able to accept the fleet, but those are the 2 main reasons. 1, not quite a reliable 60-foot fleet yet, and 2, we still have some infrastructure, but we are very excited to take the electric hybrids, as Jamie mentioned.
And we should note, as we always do, that our diesel buses today are 97 or 98% cleaner than they were 20 years ago.
Good stuff. All right, we have a motion on the floor. All in favor? Any opposition or abstention? Items are approved.
This concludes the New York City Transit report.
Mr. Zuckerman, the Finance Committee.
Thank you, sir. The Finance Committee met Monday and reports the following. There is 1 action item which seeks board authorization and approval of the necessary documents to issue new money bonds, anticipation notes, and bonds as detailed in related staff summary. The committee recommends these items, and I move them.
Okay. You moved it. Second, please, Ms. Barbas. An explanation of this particular bonding item?
So this is, we come to the board every year in December and get authorization for not to exceed amounts of debt we would be issuing next year to support the capital program. And so these resolutions are $4.5 billion of bonds or notes to fund capital as well as Triborough's needs and some working capital financings. Of note, if you look at the plan, we've increased the amount of debt we would expect to be issued, as we would be issuing debt as an interim solution until congestion pricing comes on board and we can issue debt backed by the congestion pricing revenue. So it is important that congestion pricing move forward, because the clock is ticking on really how much debt we want to issue, not backed by that revenue source.
Thanks,
Any
Kevin.
further?
Yeah.
I think there's a motion. There's a motion on the floor, so I'm going to just call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition or abstention? The item carries. Back to you, Mr. Secretary.
Thank you. There are 3 procurements for a proposed estimate expenditure of $418 million. The committee recommends this item, and I move it.
Any opposition or abstention? The items carry.
Great. Lastly, there are 9 real estate actions items this month. One is an administrative item for Metro North. There are remaining 8 items for MTA, Transit, Law and Road, and B&T. The committee recommends these items, and I move them.
Second. Mr. Jones, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition or abstention? Thank you. The real estate items are approved.
And this concludes the report.
Okay. So thank you, everybody, for helping us to race through all of that enormous amount of procurement activity and action items. Now we're going to hear our one special presentation from Jessica Matthew about the progress of the bike pedestrian initiative that we undertook a year ago. Jessica.
Great. Thank you, Chair, and good morning, board members. I'm Jessica Matthews, Senior Advisor for Special Projects, and I'm here today to provide an update on our progress on extending Transit's reach, which we released this past January. As you may recall, the plan put forward strategies to improve bicycle, pedestrian, and micromobility access across the entire MTA network, really recognizing the role that these modes play as both affordable and sustainable ways of getting around. In addition to that, from MTA's perspective, there are great ways to extend the reach of our system into communities where there might not be a train station nearby, focusing on what's known as the first and last mile. This is especially important in areas of outer Brooklyn, outer Queens, and in the suburbs, where we want to make it as easy as possible for people to access our stations. I'm very pleased to report that we're meaningfully advancing every initiative that we put forward, and I'll touch on a few of the highlights today. Let's first look at the city. So when we first put the plan out, we had bike parking within 100 feet at about 90% of our stations. Those are the stations that you'll see in gray here on the map. But we put forward as part of the plan a goal of getting that to 100%. We partnered very successfully with New York City thus far. MTA staff went out and completed fieldwork to site bike racks at 37 locations that you see highlighted on the map. 34 of those have had clusters of bike racks installed by City DOT, and they've committed to addressing the remainder, those 3 stations you see with the green outline, but in the first half of 2024, getting us to that goal. As we move forward, we're going to be taking a look at where there's high utilization and assessing opportunities to increase the capacity of that bike parking. We're also, thinking very carefully about the importance of having safe routes to ride a bike to those bike parking locations. And as part of our authorization for expanded automated camera enforcement for buses, we are also able to expand that to bike lane violations as well. And we're working with the DOT on how to roll out a pilot of that next year. Moving on to the commuter rail, similarly within the 5 boroughs, we're working with City DOT to install bike racks at priority stations where we don't own the adjacent property. Last month, they installed a cluster of bike racks you see here at Fordham Station, and planning is well underway for the next set of priority locations. In addition, we are using our small business mentor program to install new or additional parking at 13 Metro North stations and 6 LIRR stations. That'll fill gaps in bike parking across 7 suburban counties and bring our percentage of commuter rail stations with bike parking in New York to 85%. For the remainder, we're working closely with and advancing conversations with municipalities who own the property at those locations to see what's possible. And then very excitingly, we are going to be early next year releasing an RFP for on-demand app-enabled secure bike parking at 4 to 6 commuter rail stations. This is really, what our customers are telling us that they want, especially when they're going to be leaving their bikes behind for long periods of time. When thinking about the role MTA plays in enhancing regional bike access, we put areas where we can fill gaps front and center. This informed our thinking in prioritizing the next set of bus routes where we have front of bus bike racks. These are the Q44 crossing the Whitestone Bridge, the S79 SBS crossing the Verrazano, and the M60 SBS crossing the RFK Bridge into Queens. These are locations where we don't yet have bike access across the bridge itself, and so as of last month, these were fully up and running. Moving on to bridges, many updates were shared earlier this week at the Capital Program Committee about the incredible progress we're making across many of our bridges. On the RFK, we've completed a project connecting the Manhattan span to the city's East River Greenway on time and under budget. A second project to connect Randall's Island to Manhattan and the Bronx is well underway, and for the board just approved a contract for a shared use path and accessibility improvements on the suspended span of the RFK Bridge, making the connection between Randall's Island and Astoria in Queens. This project will close the final gap in bicycle and ADA access on the RFK Bridge. And finally, the shared use path projects on the Cross Bay Bridge and the recently awarded Henry Hudson Bridge are well underway, and those will be complete by the end of 2024. And finally, while we've discussed many initiatives focused on improving first and last mile bike and micromobility access, we know there are times our riders need to take their bike or scooters, in particular personal electric vehicles or PEVs, with them. So we're improving the way we communicate with our customers about how to safely take your PEV on transit and remain mindful of your fellow customers. You might have seen some of this messaging highlighted in our Courtesy Counts campaign, which you see here on the right. And since publishing our PEV policy, we're happy to report that we haven't had any major incidents with PEVs. So in closing, we're very pleased with the progress that we've been making on implementing the strategic action plan. These enhancements help to expand the reach of our network deeper into communities who have historically not been as well served by transit. It'll make it easier for people to hop on a train, a subway, or a bus. And beginning next spring, strengthening these connections to transit will become even more important, giving people additional alternatives to make it easier to avoid paying the congestion pricing toll. Our progress has truly been the fruit of the effort of MTA staff from across the entire organization, but I want to give a very special shout out to Emily Pravancia and Kayla Myros and the rest of the transit-oriented development team who are really driving this work forward every day. We have accomplished a lot, there's still a lot to do, and we'll be back with more updates soon. So with that, I'll take any questions.
Mr. Chu and then Mr. Albert.
Thank you for that, Jessica. If it's readily available, I'd love to have information on the emissions, the stations that don't have bike rack infrastructure, particularly out on the island. And I was just wondering how the first mile. We had a presentation last year on the last mile pilot. I know we had that one on Long Island and Riverhead. I'm just wondering how that's progressing. Love an update.
We're very happy to share that list of station status. In terms of the 9 first mile, last mile pilot communities, we have fully designed all of those pilot programs and are actively pursuing grant opportunities. Actually, 6 of those communities have applied for grants, and we're optimistic that we'll be able to get some funding jointly for implementation. I will say one of the barriers there has been identifying local match funds, and we're helping those communities think through creative options.
I'd love to have a sidebar conversation with you on the matching funds. I think those pilots. I mean, the pilots themselves are great, but anything we could do. I mean, we talked about this in conversation when we had the conversation about the 20-year needs assessment. Anything we can do to help, bring greater access to these stations, particularly out in our suburban communities, I think will help us, justify, some of the more, as we call them, mega improvement projects. So, thank you so much, Jessica, for the work.
Mr. Albert?
Yeah, thanks, Jessica, for the. Can you put the slides up, particularly the one that shows the stations that are going to get the bike racks? Yeah. So if you look at the key at the bottom, it says stations to receive new bike racks in 2024, and it looks like one on the Brighton line and one on the F line, the Culver line there. But if you read, it says all 472 subway stations will have bike racks in 2024. So which is it just those 2 that are on the map, or is it all stations?
Yes. So to clarify, the stations that are symbolized in gray there all already have some form of bike parking within 100 feet of them. The gaps we identified are what's highlighted in the blue and green. The blue have already been installed. So just those 3 stations are the remaining gap we have, and those will be installed in the first half of 24.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
So, but the next phase, just to underscore one of the points Jessica made, is experimenting with this with secure bike parking, because some people are uncomfortable leaving their bike locked, even if there's one of those bike parking circles to affix it to, without some kind of security protection. So we're trying to grow the usage by experimenting with those new enclosed bike parking facilities, right?
Yes, that's correct. In the commuter rail territories where we, have sufficient space, MTA controls. Within the city DOT is also actively exploring options for a solution that they can deploy as well.
Mr. Brown?
Yeah, excellent presentation. But one thing I'd like to see on that map or another map is the sort of super subscribed present bike racks. I mean, I see many there that I know. You go up to that bike rack right now and there'll be 50 bikes piled there, strapped together. And I think that indicates a lot that areas where it's obvious we could be expanding this, that you should be, I'm a Europhile. I like going to the stations in Europe where you got like 3,000 bikes parked at the station. But, I'm pretty impressed by our train, 39th Street in Brooklyn, is absolutely full of immigrant guys' bikes who are trying to make a living and hustling back and forth. I always thought, man, if we could just get a bigger bike rack there, we'd have a lot of, but I'm sure there's plenty of other super subscribed stations. And not to diminish your work here, this is a wonderful presentation.
No, that's exactly right. I mean, I think that's the next frontier. Now that we've addressed all the gaps, really right-sizing the number of racks we have. Part of it is a data collection challenge, right? We have to rely on, a lot of times, the station agents in the initial exercise. And secondly, finding appropriate space for the street furniture.
Dr. Rizzo.
Thanks for that great presentation. I think all these initiatives are wonderful. As it relates to the bike racks, if you go to the next slide, when we Next slide, please. Yeah, thanks so much. If we talk about these installations in particular, I just wanted to highlight some of the accessibility considerations. So, for example, we can create a blueprint that we could share with these municipalities, highlighting high contrast colors. We could also work on some sort of perimeter warning with tactile pavers, et cetera. What's convenient for some populations is a trip and a fall hazard for others. So I just want to be mindful of that.
Great point.
Yes, those are great points.
Great point. Well, that's definitely worth focusing on. Listen, I mean, the other piece of this that sometimes gets overlooked, I know you think about this, Sam, and Blanca and others who deal with the suburban environment a lot, is that if you get good last mile connections, it might be possible for a family which would otherwise have to own 2 automobiles to own 1 automobile, or even if to go down from 3 to 2 or whatever. That's a huge expense when the data tells us that it costs $15,000 a year on average to own an automobile. If we can help people do that, in addition to the fact that transit is way cheaper, if we can help them accomplish whatever they need to without an extra automobile, we're really doing something for them. So that's part of the broader goal that's at work here. All right. I just want to thank Jessica and the team that's worked on this. This is amazing progress. Not always you get to say we got everything we set forth to do done in a single year, so well done. With that, I would take a motion to adjourn if there's no other business. Dr. Rizzo, Ms. Lopez, thank you for the second. We're in adjournment.
Hello, G-Train riders. Starting this fall, we're working to completely rebuild the signal system on the Crosstown G line. The current signal system is 80 years old, which causes delays and makes service unreliable. To fix this, we're investing in Communications-Based Train Control, or CBTC, a modern system that will significantly improve safety, reliability, and capacity on the G line. Once we're finished, we'll be able to safely run G trains faster and closer together, resulting in more reliable service. We've already upgraded signals on the L and 7 lines, and on-time service has significantly improved. This work requires a lot of time when we can't run trains. We've scheduled most of our signal work for late night and overnight hours when fewer people ride. During this time, normal G service will operate between Church Avenue and Bedford-Nostrand Avenues. A free shuttle bus will replace G service between Bedford-Nostrand Avenues and Court Square. For service to Court Square, transfer to one of these shuttle buses. This is a long-term project with several phases of service interruptions. Please visit mta.info/alerts for the latest information. Thanks for your patience as we work to bring better service to G-Train riders, and thank you for riding with us.
If you ride the subway often, you might have heard that a train is delayed because its brakes were activated. But what does that really mean? Let's take a look at the 3 ways a train's brakes can be activated. During regular train service, a train operator uses the service brake to slow and stop the train. If the train operator notices something dangerous on the train or the tracks ahead, the train operator applies the emergency brakes manually. This releases the air pressure from the braking system, requiring the train to use friction brakes only to bring the train to a stop as quickly as possible. If a passenger pulls the emergency cord, this will apply the train's automatic brakes, but a sudden stop could present harm to yourself or others. The emergency cord or handle should never be pulled while the train is in motion, unless the movement of the train presents an imminent danger to life and limb. It's only safe to pull the cord when you are in a station, where emergency services can get to you faster. Once the emergency brake is pulled, the brakes have to reset before the train can move again. A train's emergency brakes can also become activated by a tripping device. This is a small lever on the tracks that quickly triggers the emergency brakes and stops the train when it encounters something unusual on its journey, like debris or a signal malfunction. The train crew is required to inspect the train inside and out whenever the brakes are activated to make sure everyone is safe and to locate what triggered the brakes. And sometimes this occurs in hard-to-reach spaces that take the train crew longer to navigate. The train crew removes the object that triggered the tripping device using a shoe paddle. If everything looks okay to the train crew, the train is back in action within a few minutes. But in the meantime, conductors are always actively communicating with you and keeping you updated. So next time you hear that, or from the bottom of a train before coming to a quick stop, remember, it's for your safety. We're always working to reduce any unnecessary use of emergency brakes on your subway ride. But when properly applied, they are vital to our transit system that keeps millions of New Yorkers safely moving every day.
Hello and welcome to MTA Arts and Design's Guide on Bloomberg Connects. I'm Sandra Bloodworth, Director of Arts and Design, and I'm pleased to share with you this experiential guide to the artwork across New York's transit and rail system. Since 1985, Arts and Design has commissioned 400 site-specific contemporary artworks providing meaningful connections between subway and rail stations, neighborhoods, and our diverse ridership. Traveling through the MTA network, you will experience a first-rate art museum of permanent works created in mediums such as mosaic, metal, and glass. You may also discover our extremely popular temporary art programs through Music Under New York performances, illustrated posters, photography light boxes, digital artworks, and poetry in motion. Use the new interactive map to locate artworks on your commute or plan your next adventure with our curated self-guided tours accessed through the homepage. Bloomberg Connect's digital guide makes information on MTA Arts and Design collection accessible to everyone interested in learning more. We invite you to begin your journey within New York's extraordinary Contemporary Art Museum.
You can see this one, the 401, the 202, the Brookville. Every engine does the same thing, but slightly different. Working on trains is pretty cool.
Being an electrician here is special because there's not many opportunities to work on equipment this large. These are like supersized.
The power that these things are able to generate, it just makes it that amazing, that cool.
These engines are diesel engines. It uses diesel power to create electrical energy, and that's what propels these trains.
As an electrician, our daily objectives are to maintain this equipment. It's changing light bulbs, repairing any wiring, any damage, any sensors, any transformers.
Anything that has to do with electronics for the trains. I work on a lot of PTC, positive train control. It's a warning system, it's a braking system and control system. For example, there might be a 30-mile-an-hour turn, and if the engineer doesn't control that, the train automatically brakes on its own. That's the most important system that we check here.
Our job is very important because it makes it safe to be out on the road for the passengers.
I fix everything as if somebody's watching all the time. I make sure my job is complete and the train is safe.
It's a railroad lifestyle. I enjoy the people. I enjoy the work. You create friendships here.
Being an Air Force vet, there's a pride in what you do. I had that pride in what I do here on the railroad. I get to see the results of my work every day, the trains going by, and I know I was a big part of that.
Being an electrician here is so special that we're able to, and lucky enough, to work on this equipment.
Sometimes the public may call us train drivers. Honestly, it doesn't bother me because I know they don't know. My name is Keisha Cole. I'm a train operator, and I've been with MTA for 6 years. I work on the 7 line. It's approximately 21 stops from Main Street to 34th Street, and it takes about 36 minutes from end to end.
My name is Jim Van Name. I'm a train operator for New York City Transit. I've been here about 3.5 years. I operate the train on the Q line, which end to end is approximately 44 stops, and it takes me about an hour to complete.
My earliest train memory is I was a kid. I got on the F train with my mom. The first time I was on the train, I was excited. It was fun.
I was raised on Staten Island, and my friends and I used to take the Staten Island ferry over to the city, and we used to ride the train all over the place. That's probably where I got my first love of the subways.
As a train operator, there are 2 different ways you can pick up your train. You can pick up your train in the yard as a put-in, which means you okay your train for service and bring it into the terminal station, which is the last stop on the train line. Or you can actually pick it up from the terminal station. When preparing my train for service, I do various checks to make sure it's safe for myself and for the public. Once my day starts, I have about 3 round trips. I take passengers from Main Street to 34th Street and back to Main Street. That's 1 round trip.
I start over at the yard, and then I have to do what we call a put-in. I have to prep the train for service, and then they send me out over to Stillwell Terminal, and then I go into service. I do my 2 trips up to 96th Street and back, and that pretty much completes my day. It usually takes anywhere from 8 to 8.5 hours. At the end of the day, the 2 ways of finishing the job is to just walk off the train at the terminal station at the last stop and just sign out and go home, or to do a layup, take the train from the terminal station back to the yard, lay it up, put it away for the evening, and go home from there.
I love the fact that I'm moving this big machine by myself. There have been times when I'm operating the train and I think that this is the greatest job ever. The things that I get to see when I'm going down the line and I'm seeing the sun come up, it's just so beautiful.
This is my dream job. I love this job. And some of the amazing moments I see in this job is when I'm going over the Manhattan Bridge, sometimes at sunrise to see the sun coming up, or even better, sunset, to see the sun setting behind the Manhattan Bridge is quite a sight. I pinch myself that I'm in such a great job and have that opportunity to see such great things.
I enjoy transporting people from place to place. It's just a good thing. I feel like I'm doing something special.
I love trains. I love operating the trains. I love being a part of New York City Transit. And knowing that I'm helping people get through their day and get to where they need to be gives me a lot of satisfaction.
What does a bus operator do?
John Winicki, I'm a New York City bus operator, and I've been operating a bus for 26 years. I work out of the Michael J. Quill Depot in Manhattan, and I operate the M60 bus. As a young child, I used to ride the bus with my father. He was a bus operator at a Flushing depot. Just watching him driving the bus, it made me want to do the same thing.
A bus operator's day starts out at the crew dispatcher's office. They either go out and see the yard dispatcher, get a bus to make sure the bus is fit and ready for service. They check a variety of things, and they'll then pull out and start their day. Or a bus operator may not have to pull out a bus, but may relieve a bus out on the road.
I really enjoy driving the bus. There's a lot of responsibility, different challenges, definitely the heavy traffic, a lot of bicyclists, scooters, cars cutting you off. Could be a little crazy at times.
Some of the challenges a bus operator faces on a day-to-day basis are heavy traffic conditions, and they have to be able to deal with different customer issues while driving this large vehicle in some really difficult conditions where they have to be very vigilant.
The big part of the job is customer service, dealing with a lot of types of people. A lot of customers are grateful and they thank you and makes you feel appreciated that you got them to and from their destination safe as possible.
The role of a bus operator is probably one of the most maybe understated jobs of importance for New York City. The professionalism, the tough job that they do on a day-to-day basis is invaluable. Those bus operators keep New York City moving.
A lot of times after a long, difficult day, you're like, thank God I made it, and got everyone to where they're going safely, no problems, no incidents. Kind of makes you feel proud at the end of the day.
What does a welder do?
Maribel Rivera, CMA, car maintainer. I'm a welder at Transit, and I've been working here for 20 years. Some of the things I work on are like door operator arms, the linkage that goes on the door. It's a very important part of the train. Welding has to be done precisely in order to keep those doors safely opening and closing so nobody gets hurt. I also work on parts that have come to me in an emergency and they need to go out right away to be replaced on the trains that are going out. So it's a challenge to me. And I like a challenge.
Welding is so important to New York City Transit because everything's made out of metal. There are certain parts that have wear on them that we have to refurbish. We can't just buy new parts because no one makes them. So we fabricate many parts, and there's always repairs to be made, and we need experienced high-end welders that could do any kind of welding.
I have to create a safe product, a solid weld with no contaminations or impurities, where that weld will stand vibrations from the train and keep the ridership safe. It's pretty detailed work. And that's what I like about welding.
I would say that the welders we have at New York City Transit are among the finest in the city. Our welders from this shop, 207 Street Overhaul Shop, they've cut trains out of tunnels. They were at the World Trade Center site working on a scrap heap. I go to bed at night knowing that we have the best that the city has to offer in a very difficult and a very important role.
By presenting a good product, a safe product, I'm able to help transit keep trains moving and the ridership safe. It just makes me proud that I'm able to be an important part of transit.
What does the mobile wash team do?
My name is Ferdo Chowdhury, Supervisor Mobile Wash Team. Mobile Wash unit has a big job in the system. They clean the station. And not only cleaning, in between you have to help customers. We take the truck, we take the equipment, we come to the station and clean the station. I inspect it, and after that, I'm gonna take the pre-job meeting with my team. I have to let them know this is the place we have to concentrate our mind, we have to do the job. First of all, we have to barricade the area. People cannot get in there. We have to put the soap, let the soap for 10 minutes so that the floor can suck the soap and open the dart. After that, we use the steel eagle machine. When we finish the steel eagle machine, we have to use the pressure gun. Because the steel eagle machine, sometimes it cannot reach all the way in the corner, around the column, in many other places. So we have to use the pressure gun. 4 o'clock, 4:30, we finish the job, pack up the equipment, and go back to the Quay State Depot. When customer come to us, say thank you, we feel good. And when our boss say, oh, you do the good job, we feel good, because then we are happy not with the money, with the appreciation.
Greenhouse gases have infiltrated the atmosphere, and we've been doing that over the last 100 years, not intentionally. But at the end of the day, I'm very optimistic about solving the climate challenge, because what I've seen over my 35 years here at the MTA is amazing change. And that all begins with the engineers and architects here at the MTA. I started here in 1987 as an assistant environmental engineer, and I worked my way up to chief environmental engineer. So I've always been in the environmental compliance section. Now I was actually being proactive, collecting rainwater to prevent flooding, making sure we have recycled materials, making sure our construction and demolition debris is recycled as opposed to just landfilled. My signature project here at the MTA was the Mother Clara Hale Bus Depot. The building includes a green roof, which is a vegetated roof which absorbs rainwater, absorbs carbon dioxide, adds an extra layer of insulation to the roof, and also absorbs floating particles in the atmosphere. There's also a rooftop rainwater collection system which drains into a 50,000-gallon tank, and we use that rainwater to wash the buses. But we also use the wash water and we recycle it, we filter it, and then we keep using it again and again. The building is gold certified from the United States Green Building Council, and people still come to the depot to tour it now more than 8 years after its completion. As a college professor now, after 25 years in the business, you realize that what you know, you have to pass on. So I think when I came to MTA in 1987, there were a lot of people that with lots of experience, and I realized that I needed to learn from them. We have done a great job here at MTA making our system more sustainable. Mentoring was a big deal when I first started here at MTA, and I think it's something MTA does a great job at. Because in order for us to be successful, we have to have a process where people learn from each other.
What does a system operator do?
My name is Sejan Edi, BMT Chief System Operator. I have 27 years at New York City Transit. As a Chief System Operator, I'm in charge of the supplying of DC power, traction power.
The system operator's responsibility is to oversee all the third rail power that we provide to run the trains in the New York City Transit system. The way that we power up the third rail is we get electricity from Con Edison. We go through our substation, which is converting the AC from Con Edison's high voltage into 650 volt DC. And then from there, going into the third rail, which power the trains.
A typical day for system operator involves general order. General order, or GO, it's a planned work outage. Normally they're working next to the third rail or nearby, so they want power off, so they can work safely. Any emergency happens out in the field, RCC give us a call to have a power off on a certain line, certain track.
The Power Control Center controls remotely all the equipment out on the field. This equipment that we control is called the MTU, which is the Master Terminal Unit. Any equipment that we need to operate, we control it remotely.
We take power off instantly by operating these buttons on the board. Red means the power is on. When it goes green, that means the power is off to that track. It's good to know that the work I do helps to keep the employees safe and the system moving.
My name is Ron Jones. I'm a yard master for Metro North Railroad. I've been with the MTA for 17 years now, and I work in North White Plains Yard. North White Yard, over. Not all trains go to the last stop and change ends. In between runs, the train's got to get mechanically checked. The car cleaners have got to clean the inside, and in many instances, the train's got to get fueled, our diesel trains. There's one point of contact for all of that, and that's what the yard master does. So basically, in layman's terms, I'd say we run the garage or the parking lot. That's what a yard master does. First thing I do when I come in the morning is look for my first 3 departures. We can't allow my turnover from the overnight yard master to me, allow that to be delayed. So the first thing I do is find out where those 2 trains are, and when ready, give them permission to leave the yard. After that, I start to set up my day. I designate particular tracks, and basically I set up a lineup for the rest of the day. I gotta let this train go. North White Yard 544, OK South. Garrett, you guys have a good day. Stay safe, over. For those people who are interested in careers, the Metro North is really well. They do really well with hiring from within. Just about everybody that I work with at the management level, at some point have been a cleaner or a track department, or in my case, third rail. And if you want a meaningful career, Metro North is a real good company to work for.
Hello, G-Train riders. Starting this fall, we're working to completely rebuild the signal system on the Crosstown G line. The current signal system is 80 years old, which causes delays and makes service unreliable. To fix this, we're investing in Communications-Based Train Control, or CBTC, a modern system that will significantly improve safety, reliability, and capacity on the G line. Once we're finished, we'll be able to safely run G trains faster and closer together, resulting in more reliable service. We've already upgraded signals on the L and 7 lines, and on-time service has significantly improved. This work requires a lot of time when we can't run trains. We've scheduled most of our signal work for late night and overnight hours when fewer people ride. During this time, normal G service will operate between Church Avenue and Bedford-Nostrand Avenues. A free shuttle bus will replace G service between Bedford-Nostrand Avenues and Court Square. For service to Court Square, transfer to one of these shuttle buses. This is a long-term project with several phases of service interruptions. Please visit mta.info/alerts for the latest information. Thanks for your patience as we work to bring better service to G-Train riders, and thank you for riding with us.
If you ride the subway often, you might have heard that a train is delayed because its brakes were activated. But what does that really mean? Let's take a look at the 3 ways a train's brakes can be activated. During regular train service, a train operator uses the service brake to slow and stop the train. If the train operator notices something dangerous on the train or the tracks ahead, the train operator applies the emergency brakes manually. This releases the air pressure from the braking system, requiring the train to use friction brakes only to bring the train to a stop as quickly as possible. If a passenger pulls the emergency cord, this will apply the train's automatic brakes, but a sudden stop could present harm to yourself or others. The emergency cord or handle should never be pulled while the train is in motion, unless the movement of the train presents an imminent danger to life and limb. It's only safe to pull the cord when you are in a station, where emergency services can get to you faster. Once the emergency brake is pulled, the brakes have to reset before the train can move again. A train's emergency brakes can also become activated by a tripping device. This is a small lever on the tracks that quickly triggers the emergency brakes and stops the train when it encounters something unusual on its journey, like debris or a signal malfunction. The train crew is required to inspect the train inside and out whenever the brakes are activated, to make sure everyone is safe and to locate what triggered the brakes. And sometimes this occurs in hard-to-reach spaces that take the train crew longer to navigate. The train crew removes the object that triggered the tripping device using a shoe paddle. If everything looks okay to the train crew, the train is back in action within a few minutes. But in the meantime, conductors are always actively communicating with you and keeping you updated. So next time you hear that, or from the bottom of a train before coming to a quick stop, remember, it's for your safety. We're always working to reduce any unnecessary use of emergency brakes on your subway ride. But when properly applied, they are vital to our transit system that keeps millions of New Yorkers safely moving every day.
Hello and welcome to MTA Arts and Design's Guide on Bloomberg Connects. I'm Sandra Bloodworth, Director of Arts and Design, and I'm pleased to share with you this experiential guide to the artwork across New York's transit and rail system. Since 1985, Arts and Design has commissioned 400 site-specific contemporary artworks providing meaningful connections between subway and rail stations, neighborhoods, and our diverse ridership. Traveling through the MTA network, you will experience a first-rate art museum of permanent works created in mediums such as mosaic, metal, and glass. You may also discover our extremely popular temporary art programs through Music Under New York performances, illustrated posters, photography light boxes, digital artworks, and poetry in motion. Use the new interactive map to locate artworks on your commute or plan your next adventure with our curated self-guided tours accessed through the homepage. Bloomberg Connect's digital guide makes information on MTA Arts and Design collection accessible to everyone interested in learning more. We invite you to begin your journey within New York's extraordinary Contemporary Art Museum.
You can see this one, the 401.
Hello, G-Train riders. Starting this fall, we're working to completely rebuild the signal system on the Crosstown G line. The current signal system is 80 years old, which causes delays and makes service unreliable. To fix this, we're investing in Communications-Based Train Control, or CBTC, a modern system that will significantly improve safety, reliability, and capacity on the G line. Once we're finished, we'll be able to safely run G trains faster and closer together, resulting in more reliable service. We've already upgraded signals on the L and 7 lines, and on-time service has significantly improved. This work requires a lot of time when we can't run trains. We've scheduled most of our signal work for late night and overnight hours when fewer people ride. During this time, normal G service will operate between Church Avenue and Bedford-Nostrand Avenues. A free shuttle bus will replace G service between Bedford-Nostrand Avenues and Court Square. For service to Court Square, transfer to one of these shuttle buses. This is a long-term project with several phases of service interruptions. Please visit mta.info/alerts for the latest information. Thanks for your patience as we work to bring better service to G-Train riders, and thank you for riding with us.
If you ride the subway often, you might have heard that a train is delayed because its brakes were activated. But what does that really mean? Let's take a look at the 3 ways a train's brakes can be activated. During regular train service, a train operator uses the service brake to slow and stop the train. If the train operator notices something dangerous on the train or the tracks ahead, the train operator applies the emergency brakes manually. This releases the air pressure from the braking system, requiring the train to use friction brakes only to bring the train to a stop as quickly as possible. If a passenger pulls the emergency cord, this will apply the train's automatic brakes, but a sudden stop could present harm to yourself or others. The emergency cord or handle should never be pulled while the train is in motion, unless the movement of the train presents an imminent danger to life and limb. It's only safe to pull the cord when you are in a station, where emergency services can get to you faster. Once the emergency brake is pulled, the brakes have to reset before the train can move again. A train's emergency brakes can also become activated by a tripping device. This is a small lever on the tracks that quickly triggers the emergency brakes and stops the train when it encounters something unusual on its journey, like debris or a signal malfunction. The train crew is required to inspect the train inside and out whenever the brakes are activated, to make sure everyone is safe and to locate what triggered the brakes. And sometimes this occurs in hard-to-reach spaces that take the train crew longer to navigate. The train crew removes the object that triggered the tripping device using a shoe paddle. If everything looks okay to the train crew, the train is back in action within a few minutes. But in the meantime, conductors are always actively communicating with you and keeping you updated. So next time you hear that, or from the bottom of a train before coming to a quick stop, remember, it's for your safety. We're always working to reduce any unnecessary use of emergency brakes on your subway ride. But when properly applied, they are vital to our transit system that keeps millions of New Yorkers safely moving every day.
Hello and welcome to MTA Arts and Design's Guide on Bloomberg Connects. I'm Sandra Bloodworth, Director of Arts and Design, and I'm pleased to share with you this experiential guide to the artwork across New York's transit and rail system. Since 1985, Arts and Design has commissioned 400 site-specific contemporary artworks providing meaningful connections between subway and rail stations, neighborhoods, and our diverse ridership. Traveling through the MTA network, you will experience a first-rate art museum of permanent works created in mediums such as mosaic, metal, and glass. You may also discover our extremely popular temporary art programs through Music Under New York performances, illustrated posters, photography light boxes, digital artworks, and poetry in motion. Use the new interactive map to locate artworks on your commute or plan your next adventure with our curated self-guided tours accessed through the homepage. Bloomberg Connect's digital guide makes information on MTA Arts and Design collection accessible to everyone interested in learning more. We invite you to begin your journey within New York's extraordinary Contemporary Art Museum.
You can see this one, the 401, the 202, the Brookville. Every engine does the same thing, but slightly different. Working on trains is pretty cool.
Being an electrician here is special because there's not many opportunities to work on equipment this large. These are like supersized.
The power that these things are able to generate, it just makes it that amazing, that cool.
These engines are diesel engines. It uses diesel power to create electrical energy, and that's what propels these trains.
As an electrician, our daily objectives are to maintain this equipment. It's changing light bulbs, repairing any wiring, any damage, any sensors, any transformers.
Anything that has to do with electronics for the trains. I work on a lot of PTC, positive train control. There's a warning system, it's a braking system and control system. For example, there might be a 30-mile-an-hour turn, and if the engineer doesn't control that, the train automatically brakes on its own. That's the most important.
going into All right, we're good to go. Here is Jenno Lieber.
All right. Hard to follow on that. That's like one of those Hollywood buddy comedies that you can see on Netflix if you look way, way down the list. Pretty big end of year board meeting today. We've finished the $19 billion budget. Balanced for 5 years, amazing accomplishment. Obviously, most of the causation dates back to what the action that was taken in the budget by the legislature and the governor. But it includes $427 million of efficiencies without cutting service and without cutting staff that the MTA accomplished. So I'm very proud of that. We did almost $4 billion of procurements, including some really important big-ticket items like the largest ADA package that we've ever done, 13 stations, and by far the largest zero-emissions bus procurement that we've ever done, 205 buses. And we saw a presentation from Jessica Matthews of amazing progress on the bike ped agenda, especially just making the first mile, last mile connections for everybody to get on transit, especially important as we're moving towards congestion pricing. So people can, whether they're taking a bike or a motorized scooter, and whether they're leaving it at their point of origin or bringing it into the city to move around, we are making it easier with a better bike ped system for everybody to use transit, and that was pretty cool. So with that, let the mintonizing begin.
And we start with Evan Simcoe Bednarski of the Daily News. Evan.
Hey, Jenna.
Hey.
So I wanted to ask you on congestion pricing and its sort of reception by local electeds. The mayor today, he was on Fox 5 this morning, and he sort of commented on Andrew Cuomo's recent statements, and said that he's for the concept, and this is a quote, but it has to be done right, can't be rolled out because it's a concept. Operationalizing concepts is a different thing, and we have to look at who's being charged, when do we want to charge. Given that we've just gone through the MTA's answer to those questions, can you give a response from the agency?
I haven't seen what the mayor said. I'll just repeat what I think you know, which is that every step of the way, from the inception of this 4 years ago, the city's Department of Transportation has been a full-time partner in the development of the environmental review, all the data that allowed the federal government to say that we were good to go, and the plan for operationalizing it. And we continue to work with the city every day, all day, on how to effectuate it. But obviously, we are in the process, which is we're in a position to implement congestion pricing in the spring. Obviously, the most important remaining barrier is, one, we have to complete our own state review process, public outreach process, hearings, and so on. And we also have to bring to a close the litigation that we've all been aware of.
Is May of next year still the hopeful date to start charging?
Yeah, it's possible. Right now, May is our start date. It may be early June, but it does depend on those other two variables.
Thank you.
And across the tabloid non-divide today to Nolan Hicks of the New York Post. Nolan.
The MTA keeps making the point that most of the people who are coming into the central business district are already doing so by transit or by trains. Why do you think congestion pricing then has gotten such a cold reception from, outer borough and suburban lawmakers and people seeking to appeal to them, like, for instance, the mayor or the former governor?
Listen, there are a lot of generalities in your question that I don't want to unpack, Nolan. I think that we've maintained a very strong support for congestion pricing in the legislature and certainly in New York City government circles. And the law is still the law of the state of New York as enacted by the legislature. So we're counting on that. We've obviously seen a lot of positive statements from folks both at those recent rallies and otherwise. And we're continuing to work with everybody who has raised questions about how it's going to be implemented. So we remain confident, and I think we've had, from my standpoint, the reaction to the plan that was rolled out was very positive. It was a very much lower toll than people had been led to expect. There are a lot of discounts. There's the overnight and weekend 75% discount has been very positively received, as well as low income and disability exemptions. So we think it's headed in a very positive direction.
Most of your answer focused on the physics of the law, sort of the legalities, that the law is there, we have to raise the money, we have to fund the capital plan. The politics, as you know, are very different. Why do you think the politics have sort of shifted in the way that they have following the announcement of that, that the toll seems to finally be becoming real?
Among the many line items in my job description is not, being a soothsayer about politics and elected official psychology. So I'll leave that to you.
All right, following Nolan's probe of positivity, we go to Rye Rivard from Politico right there. Rye, good morning, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. On the lawsuit, can you talk a little bit more about the settlement talks, what is on and off the table, and what a timeline for resolving that looks like that doesn't interfere unduly, in MTA's opinion, with the rollout of congestion pricing?
Right. I understand why you're asking, but one of the ground rules of settlement discussions is you can't talk about the substance, so I'm not going to. But we've had two, and there's another one scheduled for the 5th of January.
All right, let's move down to Anna Lay of the New York Times. Anna.
Hey, Jana, I'm curious, will any consideration be given to commercial trucks that come into the zone multiple times a day? I'm not sure how much that is on your radar right now.
Yes, they are. Juliet, is Juliet nearby? I believe that the commercial trucks are, that the rates that have been provided for commercial trucks, $24 for a box truck, however that's identified, and then $36 for an articulated, like a 16-wheeler. Because of their impact on congestion. Now, the proportions of those relative to the base toll for automobiles is much lower. On the bridges, sometimes it's 5+ times the auto rate. The congestion toll that's been set for trucks is based on their impact on congestion, which is the core issue we're trying to address. So that's, as I understand from the TMRB, how those tolls were established. So there was a fair amount of discussion in the TMRB. It's reflected in the report. About the basis for the truck tolls. Okay, is that responsive?
Yeah, I am curious to hear what Juliet.
What else? What other issues?
I'm just curious to hear, what other aspects of the conversation are, being considered.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to add one thing, which is that. The truck tolls will also benefit from the 75% discount in the overnight, and hoping that will attract more trips to that time period with less traffic.
Yeah, I mean, Anna, this is important. Since I was a kid in the Koch administration in the 1980s, getting trucks to make deliveries at night to reduce their impact on congestion during the day has been one of the holy grails of New York transportation planning. We've never made that much progress on. Having that toll be reduced by 75% at night is really motivated by the desire to try to get people to make deliveries early, in the middle of the night.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to slide down to Michelle Caskey of Bloomberg News down on the West Coast over there. Michelle, good afternoon.
Hi, thank you. Actually, I have some budget and debt service questions. So just wondering, there's an increase in borrowing, some of the borrowing that's dependent on the operating budget repaying the bonds. That's getting moved up because of the, and so I'm wondering, how much of, so it was 4.5 that the board approved. Yeah, okay.
Let me take a crack. So the bottom line, and I think the most important thing to underscore is that impact on the operating budget of our borrowing is at an extremely low level compared to recent years. It's 15%, and that is projected to stay at that level right through the 5-year period of the financial plan. So that's not changing. You're correct that in order to mitigate the impact of the delay in congestion pricing, the delay that we're trying to manage through, we have accelerated some MTA bond issuance, but that does not alter that fundamental percentage. And remember, Michelle, a couple years ago, we were pushing 18, 19, even getting close to 20% of the operating budget being attributable to debt service. So I think that while there is some adjustments going on for those reasons, we remain at a low level comparatively on the debt service impact on the operating budget.
Except it's a potential increase of $100 million to $300 million per year in additional debt service costs. I mean, I understand that's
right.
That's a small number in
your
comparison
job is
to
you
a $13
interpret
billion
it for right,
budget.
but
that's a lot of money
yeah,
for
but
anybody just
raw
walking down
numbers.
on the street.
But you have to look at it in the context, as you just said, of the total budget, and. No,
Yeah,
it's important.
yes, I
no,
just-
15% compared to a couple of years ago, we were pushing 17 to 19% is the relevant data point. And yeah, compared to where we were before congestion pricing started to have the schedule impacts, we have accelerated the impact of some MTA bonds that were going to be issued as part of this capital program, but we've just adjusted them in time. That's just responsible planning so that we don't interrupt the investments more than absolutely necessary. Now, we do have a ways to go on our capital program, so we are going to need that congestion pricing money, but we're trying to be responsible about when we issue debt so that we can keep the fires burning on the capital program.
All right, we got to move on. We got people waiting on the Zoom equipment right here. 1010 wins is Juliet Papa, also representing 92.3 FM and CBS 880. Jano, she's on the Zoom. Juliet.
You need to unmute, Juliet.
Here we go. Okay, how's that?
I can read lips, though, your questions about congestion pricing.
No, it is not. It is about fare evasion.
Oh, good, yeah.
I know Mr. Zuckerman mentioned that. So what is being done to deal with fare evasion, and how, as he said, pernicious is it at this point, budgetarily speaking?
Okay, so what's being done about fare evasion is, probably the most relevant thing is that we've increased. The police are issuing a lot more summonses, a 50% increase in summonses being issued for fare evasion, and a 50% increase in arrests in the subway system. That's not all for fare evasion, but some of them are, because fare evasion stops lead to questioning and check for warrants, and in many cases, what are we doing for to alter it? One, we've put on gate guards, like people who are not police officers, but who are manning or staffing the gate to make sure that that exit gate is not opened. People are not supposed to exit through it. It's an emergency exit to make sure that people aren't use fare evasion and it's paying for itself. We're also changing the turnstiles in many cases. Rich Davies and his team have done amazing work to make it harder to backcock. All of the ways in which people fare evade through the turnstile, backcocking, jumping over, a number of physical changes. We're also investing in new turnstiles. We're trying out some of them, for example, you connect to the JFK A train, and a lot of people come in from out of town. To have wider gates, have to use that exit gate. And we're doing another things to explore how do we prevent that exit gate from being open. Keys on eBay to exit gate locks and using that. We're also working with the city's Department of Education to make sure that teens, but they're also using them. One of the problems is when we stop kids for fare evasion, sometimes they have a Metro card in their pocket that entitles them to 3 rides a day. So it's partly educating kids and making things that we're doing. And on buses, which have become all of a sudden a much bigger source of fare evasion, we have armed, but they're uniformed. And in some cases, they're in plain clothes, supported by NYPD to deter bus fare evasion, which is the new problem. I think we have stabilized fare evasion in the subways. Responsive, Juliet? Okay, thanks.
All right, let's move on to Juliet's former colleague Samantha Liebman, now with New York 1. Sam, right there in the front row. Good morning.
Good morning.
Actually, sorry, you were here this morning. You were the...
I've been here all morning. I'm going to bring it back to congestion pricing, and also I just want to ask a question about fare evasion as well. But there's an exemption for commuter buses, but not commuter buses that are not affiliated with a government entity. And there are some private contractors or private buses that are very large that do take cars off the road and service areas where, New Jersey Transit is not the greatest agency, don't service, or even in Rockland County, they're not getting an exemption. And they cannot idle in New York. They have to return and then pay another toll to come back for the evening commute. Would that be considered, since they do, help accomplish the objective of getting cars off the road? I mean, of a certain size. I understand not giving it to an omnibus, but
I think in fairness, I mean, the goal was to make sure that buses that are operating as commuter operations were actually getting the exemption. So it's news to me if there are ones that are truly commuter operations that are not, that somehow would understood not to qualify. We will take another look at that. I mean, the point was, to be perfectly honest, you didn't want a luxury bus service that's just there to make money. Hampton Jitney might be one example of that to get an exemption, but. The goal is for commuter operations really to get it. Now, we have to go back and look at the way it's worded and specific issues, but that is one. If it's for, John's point is if it's for transit, in the broadest sense, it's meant to be exempt.
And my other question was, I thought on Monday I heard something about facial recognition technology being introduced along with the new fare gates. Is that something? No,
there was a discussion. We're doing a CCTV procurement, and that's good. We obviously get. We've had a lot of improved security and safety as a result of having more cameras and more CCTV, but we're not. Our cameras are not deploying facial recognition.
Something that would be considered, considering that many of the people being arrested are the same people over and over and over?
We've had pretty good success in catching people who are committing crimes in the transit system. If you just look back at what the NYPD does when they announce arrests, almost within 48 hours in almost every case of violent crimes and all the major crimes, I think we're doing pretty well with the system that we have. In terms of actually apprehending people who are wrongdoers in the system.
All right, all the way on the left end of the gallery, that's Matthew Chase from Newsday, who may be attending his first post-board news conference.
It's the second one in like 15 years.
Off by one. All right, welcome back.
Thank you very much. I'd like to just first follow up on Sam's question. The general counsel of your construction arm described the procurement as the installation of CCTV systems for passenger identification at various New York City transit stations. What did he mean by that? That seems to be facial recognition. The second question about Long Island Railroad, what are your priorities for next year? How does it differ from this year? And what are the bike locations that were referenced in the...
Okay, well, the bike locations, we've made a lot of progress in the Long Island Railroad stations in getting more bike parking, but I'll have to defer to somebody to give you the specifics about where that is. It's a priority for us to have just much more bike parking at suburban stations. I don't know whether the wording chosen by the presenter on Monday was incorrect. I'm giving you the answer, which is we're not using AI in our cameras. We need CCTV to have more visibility into the transit system writ large, but we are not using AI. I'm not saying that it could never happen at any time in the future. I'm saying that's the answer, and I just want to be clear about that. Your other question was what are my goals for the Long Island
Can
Railroad?
I just follow up real quick on that? What is, when it says passenger identification, maybe you're not using AI, but what does that mean exactly? Because you have cameras.
Yeah.
Now there's a difference in what you're doing.
Passenger ID for those CCTV camera, it means it takes a picture of, you can produce a photo from it
that can be used for someone to look at the photo in an enforcement action, identify that person. It's a hard no. We don't use facial recognition.
Will every passenger be photographed? Is that what that means, or only in certain cases?
We have cameras that are mounted. In this case, this is at the fare arrays, and they are continuously taking footage within the system. We have many cameras in the system that are producing footage. In some cases, they are used for passenger identification, but not through facial recognition.
And then, Jano, your priorities for Long Island Road, how it differs from this year, et cetera.
Okay, well, no, I mean, our priorities are on-time performance to make sure, and we're particularly interested in, I think Rob Free and I have been talking about OTP in Jamaica, not just at the terminal stations. We want to make sure that the process of having a system where people are changing more is evolving in a good direction. Completing major capital projects. I mean, you heard some of them being discussed. Doing the bike and pedestrian, the last mile connections are especially important for Long Island. We have a couple of really exciting transit-oriented development projects. You know, we've got big parking lots, not always owned by the MTA, but there are opportunities to do multifamily development in places where people can use transit and maybe not have to rely on owning multiple automobiles as much, and safety. And we've got a great MTA police force that is, in the last year or so, I want to emphasize, it has been more systematically patrolling the trains, and that is both deterring crime, giving passengers, I think, more comfort that there's safety on the trains, and also helping us to start being a little bit more systematic and aggressive about the growing problem of fare evasion, which exists on the commuter railroads as well as on in New York City Transit.
And just forgive me, what is OTP?
On-time performance.
Okay, thank you.
All right, straight in front of you is David Colon from Streets Blog, right there in the Knicks cap. He's keeping hope alive. Dave.
They beat the Lakers at home. I had a couple for you, Jano. One was today at the governor's office, the Taxi Workers Alliance is rallying to ask for an exemption from the $1.50 charge for the congestion pricing on the passenger surcharge. They're getting Charles Komanoff to speak at the rally. He's obviously seen as one of the fathers or grandfathers of congestion pricing, and they say that this exemption can be granted and the MTA can still raise $1 billion. Is there any thought of getting this exemption in there for yellow cabs, or is this baked in?
I mean, listen, we have to go through our public outreach and public comment process, so we're going to give that a chance to play out. But listen, on the issue of the congestion fee, number one, we heard throughout the outreach that took place, all the public hearings, there were 35 separate events during the environmental review. We heard from a lot of people that it was important that taxis and FHVs be charged per ride so that it could be passed on to the passenger, that all of that, whatever the charge, would not be borne by the driver if they just came in, for example, once. And the TMRB's proposal does that. The other point that I think sometimes gets overlooked is part of the goal of congestion pricing is to make traffic move faster. And it is an established fact that taxi drivers do a lot better when they can move quickly and get more fares and drop, as we say in New York, the drop of the meter rather than sitting in traffic. So there are benefits to the yellow cab industry and to the FHV industry of less congestion and faster traffic movement, and not to totally overlook, the reality is that people tip on the whole meter now. So there'll be some incremental, broadly speaking, there'll be some incremental increase to tipping on top of the congestion fee as well. So I think there are benefits to the taxi industry of what's been proposed. Listen, what the TMRB proposed was for the yellow cabs to be half as much as the FHVs, and it was strictly based on the fact that how frequently they cross and travel inside the central business district. It was done, strictly based on the idea that, at a minimum, since they are roughly 50% of the traffic in the CBD, they should be paying the equivalent of 1 charge per day, even though they're going in and out much more than an individual vehicle might. So they have a significant impact on congestion. And I think just charging them once per day was I thought, a sign of an attempt to try to be fair to that industry, which has had some difficulties.
And then with next year's expanded bus camera enforcement that's going on, I know it got mentioned really briefly during the bike access update, but can you kind of explain what goes into putting together the bike lane enforcement piece of the camera enforcement? How is it getting put together? Does the DOT have to put down the rules? Are you guys putting down the rules? And is it going to start at the same time as the rest of the ACE stuff?
Richard Davey to the microphone.
For the record, you were celebrating a Knicks victory over an 8th place team in the West, by the way. I just wanted to point that out.
How was last night? Did you watch the whole game?
Well, they're the first in the East. So the answer to the question on bike lanes, we'll work with the DOT, obviously, to identify those. It'll work much like, just from an IT perspective, much like today when we enforce bus lanes. So the AI will look at a license plate and then work to make sure it's not exempt and then send a ticket. But in terms of identifying the actual bike lanes for next year, we'll work closely with the DOT, and we work with them on the rules too, in terms of, how often you can ticket and how much time you give folks. But we're excited. I mean, we're certainly excited to have that new legislation, and we're excited to have faster buses, safer buses, and in this instance, safer bike lanes.
So the DOT makes the rules on the
we make
how it
suggestions and recommendations, but ultimately will be up to the DOT. It is their streets, obviously.
All right, we move on, just like the Celtics are moving on in that division, to Ben Brockfeld of AM New York and Schneps Media. Ben.
That's true. Hey, Jano. So the MTA buses are running at 4-year low speeds, 8.18 miles per hour on average, last I checked. They've been going down since they were at something of a peak in 2020 with the pandemic. And, it feels like the big...
Are you representing the Congestion Pricing Now Coalition? I mean, what is it?
We're getting there.
Okay, go.
It's... Last year, the city didn't even come close to building the number of bus lanes it's legally required to, and it's not going to meet that requirement again this year. You guys have made public statements, but what are you going to try to put pressure on the Adams administration and to complete more bus lanes, and how would you do that?
It sounds like you're doing it for us, but. Listen, we control what we control, so we push very hard for the ability to do camera enforcement in the bus lanes, and we're implementing it right away, and that's going to be a big deterrent. All the data shows that people relatively infrequently get a second ticket in a bus lane or a second speeding ticket, and they very infrequently get a third. So we think that has great promise to get people out of bus lanes and to move the buses more quickly. But obviously we want to do more bus lanes, and we're going to keep working with the city every day, all day, to convince them that the mayor was right when he originally said it makes sense to do 150 miles of bus lanes during his first 4-year term. And we are very much trying to push forward on that. But obviously, in the end of the day, we are reliant on them. But what we have done is we've offered to contribute our staff resources to accelerate the community processes that go into that, and to do more of the technical modeling ourselves. These are roles that were previously run by the city DOT. We're saying if you're short of people, we will do some extra work to try, if it helps you, to move along bus lanes. And we're going to keep offering everything we can to improve the incentives for the city to make good on the mayor's original commitment.
And one other question. I know you said you can't get into the specifics on the settlement talks, but in a very general sense, is the MTA willing to give up some portions of the plan that was recommended this month by the board? Would it be willing to give up any portions of that in settlement talks?
So this is like a Perry Mason moment where, because he asked the question a second time, I break down and answer differently. Yeah, in a general sense, I'm not answering.
Thank you, Jano, Julia, Jamie, the Trip Jays, and Rich. And good afternoon, everybody from Lower Manhattan.